What if Deku wasn't just a boy with super strength, but a creature of fire and scale? Imagine Izuku Midoriya, not just breathing flames but becoming a dragon. We're about to dive deep into a terrifying transformation that would shake the foundations of My Hero Academia. And how would a draconic Deku fight villains? How would his friends react to this monstrous power? So watch till end, and I have Patreon! And you can find Patreon-only content and behind the scenes. It's not necessary, but you can support my channel with it, and so do check out all details in description and jump right into the video.
There are two kinds of firsts in a hero's life. The kind you choose, your first notebook page filled with dreams, your first training bruise you wear like a medal, your first step towards something bigger than fear, and the kind that chooses you. Izuku Midoriya's first scale was the second kind. It didn't arrive with a cool transformation sequence or a dramatic theme song. It didn't announce itself like a quirk should. No fireworks, no applause, no proud doctor smiling at a worried mother. It arrived like a sickness. Like something old in his blood finally deciding, enough waiting. The day they called him quirkless. The clinic smelled like disinfectant and cheap coffee. It was the kind of smell that sank into your clothes and followed you home, like it wanted to make sure you remembered your place. Izuku sat on the paper-covered exam table with his feet swinging a little too high off the ground, hands folded in his lap like he'd seen adults do. They were pretending not to be nervous. His mom, Inko Midoriya, stood beside him, fingers twisting together until her knuckles went pale. Her eyes were bright already. Izuku hated that part the most. Not the doctor. Not the words. The pre-cry look his mom got when she was trying to be strong and failing quietly. The doctor tapped at a tablet, the little stylus clicking like a countdown. No sign of a quirk factor emerging. He murmured. Izuku's heart did something weird. It didn't drop. It didn't break. It just went still, like a rabbit freezing in tall grass. The doctor pulled up the X-ray. A clean image of Izuku's feet. See this? He pointed. Extra joints in the pinky toe. It's a common indicator. Quirkless. The word hit like a stamp. Inked, official, permanent. Inko's breath hitched. But my husband had a quirk. And I understand, the doctor said in the gentle voice professionals used when they wanted to be kind without promising anything. But not everyone inherits. It happens. The most important thing is that you encourage him to find a safe path in life. Izuku blinked up at the X-ray, as if the bones could argue on his behalf. He wanted to ask, "Are you sure?" He wanted to say, "I feel weird sometimes." He wanted to admit, "Sometimes I get so hot my skin hurts." But he didn't. Because he'd already learned something, even at 4 years old, if you said something strange, people looked at you like you were a problem waiting to happen. So he smiled. A small, brave smile, the kind kids use to protect their parents. "It's okay, Mom," he said, voice shaking a little. "I can still be a hero. Right. Like All Might." Inko covered her mouth. Tears escaped anyway. The doctor looked uncomfortable, like hero dreams were messy things that didn't belong in sterile rooms. "Hero work is dangerous even for those with powerful quirks," he said carefully. "For someone without. I'll try really hard," Izuku promised. The words came out before he could stop them. Like an oath. Like a spell. The doctor sighed, typed something into the file, and the appointment ended. But as they left, Izuku felt it again. That strange heat behind his ribs. Not anger. Not panic. Something deeper. Something that didn't care what the X-ray said. The boy who ran hot. The first time Inko noticed it, Izuku was 5. It was late summer. Humid. The air clung to skin like wet cloth. Inko had turned off the stove, wiped the counter, and started to relax, until she heard a small, pained sound from the living room. Izuku. She found him curled on the carpet, hugging his stomach. "Sweetie, what's wrong?" "I'm hot," he whispered. Inko touched his forehead and yanked her hand back like she'd brushed a kettle. "Ah." She grabbed a thermometer, shoved it under his tongue, and waited with trembling hands. The number climbed. Not high enough to call an ambulance. High enough to scare her. She tried cool towels. She tried water. She tried opening the windows. It didn't help. Then, without warning, Izuku's breathing slowed. The tension in his shoulders eased. The heat faded like a tide pulling back. Within minutes, he was normal again. Like it had never happened. Maybe it's stress, the doctor said later. Or a mild fever. Kids are weird. Izuku listened from the hallway, fingertips pressed to his palm. He wanted to tell them it wasn't a fever. Because fevers didn't leave marks. He'd seen it in the bathroom mirror afterward, just for a second. A patch on his shoulder blade that didn't look like skin. A faint, pale shimmer under the light. Like something hard beneath the surface. When he blinked, it was gone. He didn't tell his mom. Not because he didn't trust her. Because he could already imagine her face, frightened, helpless, blaming herself. So Izuku swallowed the secret and kept walking. For a while, the heat became background noise in his life. A weird thing that happened when he cried too hard. When he ran too fast. When he got sick. When he got scared. When Bakugo Katsuki shoved him against a wall and told him to stop following him around like a stray dog. Izuku's skin would prickle. His chest would burn. His vision would narrow like a camera lens. And for a moment, just a moment, something in him would wake up and whisper. Bite. Izuku hated that whisper. So he tried to be gentler. Quieter. Smaller. He told himself he was just imagining it. Because dragons didn't exist. Quirks were science. Heroes were human. Everything had rules. Right. 3. Aldera Middle School. Where dreams go to die. By the time Izuku was 14, he'd become an expert in staying harmless. He walked with his shoulders slightly forward, as if he could fold himself into a shape that took up less space. He spoke softly, laughed politely, apologized even when he wasn't the one who messed up. And he carried his notebooks like they were a shield. Because as long as he was writing about heroes, studying their quirks, their fighting styles, their rescue patterns, he could pretend he belonged to that world. Even if the world didn't want him. Aldera Middle School wasn't the worst place in Japan, but it was a place that worshipped power like it was a god. And Katsuki Bakugo was a walking miracle to them. Explosive sweat, combat talent, confidence sharp enough to cut steel. He was everything a future hero should be. And Izuku was everything a future hero shouldn't. Hey, Deku. Bakugo's voice snapped like a firecracker, and the classroom turned into an audience. Izuku looked up from his notebook too slowly. Bakugo stood over him, hand already reaching. Still taking notes like it matters. Bakugo sneered. That's adorable. He snatched the notebook and flipped through it, laughing louder with every page. Look at this, he wrote down my quirk stats again. Bakugo announced. You're obsessed. You little creep. The class laughed. Izuku's cheeks burned, but he forced a smile. I think your quirk is amazing, Kachan. Bakugo's eyes flashed. He leaned in, voice dropping low enough that only Izuku could hear. Stop calling me that. Then, louder, for the crowd. You think you can be a hero. With nothing. His hand tightened around the notebook. The paper crumpled. You should do everyone a favor, Bakugo said casually, like he was talking about the weather. And take a swan dive off the roof. The words landed like a slap. Not because Bakugo invented cruelty, Izuku had heard worse. Because part of Izuku believed him. Because the world kept agreeing with Bakugo, over and over, in 1,000 small ways. Izuku's breath hitched. And that was when it happened. Not a big transformation. Not yet. Just a sensation crawling under his skin. A prickling, like pins. Izuku's fingers curled on instinct. A patch of skin on his knuckles hardened, so subtle no one noticed, but Izuku felt it. The texture shifted, like smooth becoming ridged. He stared at his hand. For a heartbeat, he imagined it, claws. Scales. He tossed the notebook onto the floor. Pathetic. Izuku swallowed, forced his hand to relax, and bent down to pick up the pieces of himself. By the time he stood up again, the sensation was gone. But the heat behind his ribs stayed. Patient. Waiting. For the sludge villain incident, when the dragon woke. The day everything changed started like every other day. Gray sky, crowded streets, Izuku's heart full of hope nobody wanted. He walked home. After school with his notebook tucked under his arm, replaying footage of All Might in his head. He saves people with a smile. Izuku clung to that idea like it was oxygen. At a convenience store, he bought a cheap drink he didn't really want because it made him feel normal to do normal things. Then he turned a corner and the world became a nightmare. Something wet and heavy slammed into him from behind, wrapping around his face like a suffocating blanket. Izuku didn't even have time to scream before the sludge forced its way into his mouth and nose, burning cold and oily and wrong. He flailed, panicked, hitting nothing but squishy resistance. A voice hissed directly into his skull. Ah, finally, a body. Izuku's vision blurred. Air vanished. Instinct took over. And somewhere deep inside him, something ancient stirred. Heat surged up from his chest like a furnace igniting. Not anger. Not fear. Survival. His ribs hurt. His skin prickled. His bones felt too tight. The sludge tried to force itself deeper. And Izuku burned. Not with flame. With pressure. His body refused to be claimed. The sludge villain recoiled with a strangled gurgle. What? Izuku's throat convulsed. A violent cough tore out of him. And a burst of superheated steam exploded from his mouth, blasting the sludge backward like a pressure cannon. Izuku hit the pavement, choking, gasping, eyes watering. He looked down at his arms. Scales. Not metaphorical. Not imagined. Small, pale plates had erupted across his forearms like armor growing from under his skin. His fingertips were darker, harder, almost claw-like. His hoodie sleeves had split at the seams. The air around him shimmered. The sludge villain screamed, more in shock than pain. What the hell are you? Izuku didn't know. He only knew he was alive. And then, a shadow fell over them. A massive figure dropped from above like a meteor in a cape. All Might is here. The words hit the street like thunder. For Izuku, time slowed. All Might, towering, golden. Impossible, grabbed the sludge villain with one hand and peeled him off the ground like he was nothing but trash. Now then, All Might boomed, voice cheerful as ever, let's get you contained before you cause trouble. Whoa. All Might's smile faltered, not at the villain, at Izuku. His eyes flicked to the scales. The torn fabric, the heat haze. For the first time in Izuku's life, All Might looked uncertain. I'm okay. Izuku stammered, scrambling to his feet. His knees shook. His heart hammered like it wanted to break out of his chest. All Might sealed the villain in a bottle with practiced ease. Then turned fully toward Izuku. Young man, he said, quieter now, are you hurt? Izuku opened his mouth to answer. And a low sound rumbled out of him instead. A growl. Izuku froze, horrified. His throat felt different. His jaw ached. His teeth felt sharper. All Might's posture changed. It wasn't fear, exactly. It was awareness. Like a hero recognizing danger. Izuku's vision tunneled. The street sounds faded. He could hear heartbeats, his own, All Might's, strangers nearby. He could smell metal, sweat, exhaust, and something else. Something like smoke. His hands curled again. The scales crept higher up his arms. His back burned, 2 points between his shoulder blades, aching like bones trying to push through skin. The dragon inside him whispered again, louder this time. Protect yourself. Izuku clenched his fist so hard it hurt. No, he whispered. Stop. All Might stepped closer, voice gentle. Hey, look at me. Izuku forced his eyes up. All Might wasn't smiling now. But his gaze was steady. Human. Real. You're safe, All Might said. The threat is gone. Breathe. Izuku tried. His breath came out too hot. His chest felt like it was full of fire. All Might's hand hovered near Izuku's shoulder, close enough to help, not close enough to startle. Can you walk? All Might asked. Izuku nodded shakily. All Might glanced around, then leaned down slightly, lowering his voice. Let's get you somewhere private, he said. Before anyone sees this and panics. Izuku swallowed. He didn't like the word panics. But he understood it. Because if Izuku saw Nate turning into a dragon in the middle of the street, he might panic too. 5. Aftermath. The hero and the monster. All Might led him into a quiet alley and crouched beside him as Izuku sat on a crate, trying not to tremble. The scales were already fading. Not disappearing completely, Izuku could still feel ridges under his skin, but retracting, as if the dragon was sinking back into sleep. His breathing steadied. The heat behind his ribs dimmed, but it didn't go away. All Might watched the process with the focus of someone studying an explosion site. Your quirk, All Might said slowly. You were told you didn't have one. Izuku nodded, throat tight. I was diagnosed quirkless. All Might's jaw clenched. That diagnosis may have been wrong, he said. Izuku laughed weakly, because what else do you do when reality snaps in half? I guess so. All Might's eyes softened. That wasn't flame, he murmured. Not like endeavor. That was pressure. Heat. A kind of biological reaction. Izuku stared at his hands. His knuckles were scraped from falling. Under the scrape, his skin looked normal. But he knew what he'd seen. He knew what he'd felt. I didn't mean to, Izuku whispered. It just happened. All Might nodded like he believed him completely. Quirks manifest under stress all the time, he said. Especially if they're dormant. Dormant. Like a sleeping beast. All Might took a breath. Like he was about to say something heavy. Then he, very carefully, asked, "Do you still want to be a hero?" Izuku's head snapped up. The question was absurd. Of course he did. He'd wanted it so badly it hurt. But now his body had turned into something that felt wrong. Dangerous. Monstrous. He thought of the growl that had slipped out of him. He thought of the whisper, bite. He thought of people screaming and running away. And still, yes, Izuku said, voice shaking but firm. More than anything. All Might stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, his expression changed. Not into a smile. Into something like respect. Then listen, All Might said, voice low. Because what I'm about to tell you, I don't tell just anyone. Izuku blinked. All Might reached up and, in one impossible motion, his massive form deflated. Like a balloon losing air. Muscle collapsed into thinness. Golden strength into a gaunt, tired man with hollow cheeks and sunken eyes. Izuku's world tilted. All Might. Toshinori Yagi gave him a weary smile. Surprised. I would be too. Izuku's mouth opened, closed, opened again. He couldn't process it. All Might, his symbol, his impossible hero, was fragile. But his eyes were the same. Still kind. Still determined. I can't stay in my hero form for long, Toshinori admitted. And I'm searching for someone to inherit my power. Izuku's heart slammed against his ribs. Inherit. Toshinori nodded. There's a quirk, he said quietly. Passed down from one person to another. It grows stronger each time. It's called One for All. Izuku felt dizzy. This was too much. Dragon scales. All Might's secret. Inheritance. Toshinori watched him carefully, like he was measuring the boy in front of him. Not the power, not the scales, but the choice. I saw you run, Toshinori said. Without thinking about yourself. Even when you believed you had nothing. Izuku swallowed hard. I couldn't watch him die. Toshinori's gaze sharpened. That, he said, is what makes a hero. Izuku's eyes burned. But, Toshinori continued, and the word hit like a warning bell, your body is already changing. Whatever your quirk is, it's dangerous. Unstable. It surfaced under stress and nearly. He stopped, glancing at Izuku's hands. Nearly pushed you into something primal, Toshinori finished. Izuku flinched. He hated how accurate that felt. Toshinori leaned forward. If I give you One for All, he said, it will make you stronger. It will help you survive hero training. Izuku's chest tightened with hope. But it will also amplify what's already inside you, Toshinori said. It will feed it. Izuku's hope stuttered. Toshinori's voice softened. So I need you to understand this clearly, young Midoriya. He held Izuku's gaze like it mattered. Power doesn't make you a hero, Toshinori said. Control does. Choice does. Izuku's hands trembled. He thought of the dragon whisper. He thought of Bakugo's words. He thought of his mom crying in the clinic. And he thought of All Might standing between danger and people, smiling even when he was broken inside. Izuku inhaled. His breath was still warm. Still wrong. Still his. I'll learn, Izuku said, voice cracking. No matter what it takes. I'll learn control. I'll choose to save. I'll be. He choked on the words. Toshinori's eyes glistened. Then, he said, voice thick, I will make you my successor. Izuku's heart exploded with disbelief. But before it could become joy, Toshinori raised a finger. One condition, he said. Izuku froze. Toshinori's gaze turned fierce, like the symbol of peace peeking through the fragile man. You will not treat that dragon inside you like a weapon, he said. You will treat it like a responsibility. Izuku nodded so fast it hurt. Toshinori stood, pulling his coat tighter around his thin form. Meet me tomorrow, he said. We begin training, and we begin figuring out what you are. Izuku looked down at his hands. At the last faint ridges under his skin. At the first proof that the world's rules had lied to him. A hero's path had opened. But it didn't look like the one he dreamed of. It looked like fire. And teeth. And the choice to stay human anyway. As Toshinori walked away, the night air cooled against Izuku's skin. But the heat behind his ribs didn't fade. It curled tighter. Like something coiling in the dark. Like a dragon settling back into its cave. Not defeated. Just waiting. Izuku didn't sleep that night. Not because he was too excited, though that was definitely part of it. Not because he was afraid, though that was also true. He didn't sleep because every time he closed his eyes, he felt it again. That heat behind his ribs. Not like a fever. Like a presence. Like something curled inside him in the shape of a question. And now, that question had a name. One for all. And a promise. Meet me tomorrow. Izuku lay on his futon staring at the ceiling, listening to his apartment's little sounds, the refrigerator hum, the pipes clicking. His mom turning in her room like she couldn't get comfortable either. He raised his hand in the dim light. The scales were gone now. But when he ran his thumb over his knuckles, he swore he could still feel faint ridges. Like his skin remembered being armor. He swallowed. A dragon. Not in a fantasy way. In a my body did that way. He clenched his fist. The skin warmed slightly. Not enough to burn. Enough to warn him. The whisper didn't come tonight. But the silence felt like a predator holding its breath. One, telling mom. The hardest part. Morning came too fast. Izuku shuffled into the kitchen, hair a mess. Eyes red-rimmed. Inko was already there, making breakfast with the stiff movements of someone trying very hard to be normal. She glanced over her shoulder and froze. Izuku, her voice softened instantly. Sweetheart, you look terrible. I'm fine, he lied, because it was reflex at this point. Inko set down the spatula and came closer, fussing with his hair like she could fix his life by fixing his bangs. Did something happen yesterday? She asked carefully. You were quiet when you came home. Izuku's throat tightened. This was it. The moment where he either carried the secret alone again, or finally let someone share the weight. I met All Might, he blurted. Inko blinked. You met. He saved me, Izuku added quickly, words tumbling over each other. A villain attacked me, and All Might was there, and. Inko's hands flew to her mouth. A villain attacked you. Izuku. I'm okay. Izuku held up his hands like surrender. I'm okay, I promise. But something happened. Inko's eyes sharpened with a mother's fear. What happened? Izuku hesitated. Then he pulled up his sleeve. Nothing showed. He tugged higher. Still nothing. Because of course his body chose now to behave. I changed, Izuku whispered. My skin, it turned into scales. I breathed something hot. Not fire, but, like steam. Like pressure. Inko's face drained of color. For a second, Izuku saw it, the memory of the clinic. The doctor. The quirkless stamp. Inko sat down hard at the table like her knees quit. Izuku, she whispered. That's impossible. I know, Izuku said, voice trembling. But it happened. Inko's eyes filled instantly. Oh my baby, she reached across the table and gripped his hands, squeezing like she was checking he was still real. Izuku squeezed back. Then he took the biggest leap of faith he'd ever taken. All Might wants to train me, he said. Inko snapped her head up so fast her bun shifted. Train you. He said he wants to, give me his quirk, Izuku said. And the words still sounded unreal. He said it's called One for All. The kitchen went silent. Inko stared at him like she didn't know whether to cry or scream. Give you, his quirk. She repeated faintly. Izuku nodded, breath shallow. I'm meeting him today. Inko's hands started shaking. She stood, paced once, then turned back, tears spilling freely now. No, she said. Izuku's heart cracked. Mom. No, Inko repeated, voice rising. Absolutely not. Izuku, you almost died yesterday. You're 14. Izuku flinched, but he forced himself to stay standing. Mom, this is my chance. This is a trap, Inko sobbed. Or a mistake, or you're sick, or, Izuku, please, I can't lose you. The words stabbed deep because they weren't anger. They were love, and fear. Izuku swallowed hard. I know, he whispered. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. Inko collapsed into a chair again, shoulders shaking. Izuku walked around the table and hugged her from behind. Resting his chin on her head. But, I can't stop wanting it, Izuku said softly. Even when I'm scared. Inko's tears soaked into his shirt. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then she whispered, defeated and trembling. Where are you meeting him? Izuku let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Dagoba Beach, he said. He said, I have to clean it. Inko sniffed. Cleaning, trash. Izuku nodded. Inko wiped her eyes and looked up at him with the expression of someone trying to be brave. If All Might is involved, she said shakily, then I trust him. She grabbed his face in both hands, squishing his cheeks like he was still 5. But Izuku, she said fiercely, if you get hurt, if you ever feel like you're losing control, you come home. Immediately. Izuku's eyes burned. I promise, he whispered. Once, like something listening. To Dagoba Beach, where dreams meet garbage. Dagoba Beach looked like the world had given up. Rusting appliances, broken boats, tangled nets, plastic bottles, old tires, piles of junk stacked like monuments to neglect. And standing in the middle of it all, like he belonged even among wreckage, was Toshinori Yagi. In hero form, All Might. He turned as Izuku approached, bright smile snapping into place like a switch. Young Midoriya, he boomed. You came. Izuku bowed so fast his neck popped. Yes, sir. All Might chuckled. No need to be so formal. Now, he clapped his hands. Behold, your training ground. Izuku stared at the beach. This is a lot, he said weakly. All Might's grin widened, like he'd been waiting for that reaction. Exactly. To inherit my power, you must first build a body capable of containing it. Izuku nodded like he understood, even though his brain was still screaming Trash Beach. All Might walked beside him, hands on his hips, surveying the mess. One for all is not a gentle power, All Might said, voice dropping slightly. If your body is unprepared, it will destroy you. Izuku's stomach flipped. All Might continued, eyes sharper now. In your other condition. Izuku's hand drifted unconsciously toward his chest. The heat. All Might didn't say dragon. Not yet. But his gaze flicked to Izuku's arms. Like he was imagining the scales under the skin. That too, All Might said quietly. We trained for that as well. Izuku nodded. All Might's smile returned, bright and reassuring. Let's start simple, he declared. Today's goal, 1 bag. Izuku blinked. 1 bag. All Might nodded solemnly. 1 bag. Izuku stared at the mountains of trash. Then back at All Might. That seems small. All Might's eyes twinkled. Oh, young Midoriya, he said, leaning down like sharing a secret. This is not just strength training. He tapped Izuku's chest with 1 finger. This is discipline training. Izuku swallowed. All Might stood tall. Begin. 3. The dragon doesn't like hard work. The first hour was fine. Izuku lifted small pieces, filled a bag, dragged it to the pile. Sweat dripped down his forehead. His arms burned pleasantly. His lungs worked. Normal effort. Normal fatigue. Then the second hour hit, and Izuku's body remembered it was Izuku's body. He tried to lift an old washing machine. His legs strained. His back screamed. And then, heat. It rose behind his ribs like a flare. Izuku staggered, dropping the machine with a loud crash. All Might was at his side instantly. Stop. All Might ordered. Izuku panted, confused. I'm okay, I just. All right, All Might said firmly, and Izuku froze at the tone. All Might crouched, watching Izuku's face. Tell me what you feel, he said. Izuku swallowed. It's like a furnace, Izuku admitted. Like something's building pressure in my chest. All Might's gaze sharpened. Does your throat hurt? Izuku nodded. All Might's jaw tightened, like he'd been expecting that. Do not push through it, All Might warned. Not yet. Izuku blinked. But, All Might pointed at Izuku's chest. That is not simple fatigue, he said. That is your quirk reacting to stress. Izuku's fingers curled as the heat climbed. His skin prickled. He glanced down. A faint shimmer crawled across his forearm, barely visible, but there. Scales trying to surface. Izuku's breath quickened. All Might put a hand up, palm out, not touching, just a clear signal to stop. Breathe, All Might said. Slowly. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Izuku tried. The exhale came out too hot. A little puff of steam hissed from his lips. Izuku froze, horrified. All Might's eyes widened, then steadied. Good, All Might said. Izuku blinked. Good. Controlled release, All Might corrected. Not a panic burst. That is progress. Izuku stared at him. All Might clapped Izuku's shoulder, gently. Young Midoriya, All Might said, voice serious. Your quirk is not just fire. It is pressure. Heat generation. Compression. Izuku swallowed. Like a dragon. All Might hesitated, just for a heartbeat. Then he nodded once. Yes, All Might said quietly. Like a dragon. Izuku's heart hammered. All Might stood and looked out at the beach. We will treat it like a natural phenomenon, All Might said. Not a curse. Not a monster. A system. He looked back down at Izuku. And systems can be trained. Izuku nodded slowly. The heat behind his ribs eased, like something reluctantly obeying. All Might smiled again, smaller this time, more human. Now, he said. One bag. Izuku wheezed a laugh. Yes, sir. Fourth, the rule of one for all and why it scares All Might. Over the next week, the beach became Izuku's second home. His hands blistered. His shoulders ached. His legs screamed. But something else happened too. His body changed. Not into a dragon. Not yet. Into something sturdier. His posture improved. His muscles tightened. His stamina grew. And the heat episodes became more predictable. Like a storm pattern you could learn. All Might made him keep a notebook, this time not about heroes, but about himself. Trigger. Heavy lift right pointing arrow heat spike. Trigger. Anger frustration right pointing arrow scale shimmer. Trigger. Panic right pointing arrow throat pressure plus steam cough. Cooling methods. Water, deep breathing, rest. It was weird, studying his own body like a hero profile. But it worked. Then, one day, All Might sat beside him on a half-buried refrigerator and got very quiet. I need you to understand something, All Might said. Izuku wiped sweat from his brow. Okay. All Might stared out at the waves. One for all is accumulation, he said. Power stored and passed down. Izuku nodded. All Might's voice tightened. When you inherit it, it will. Surge through your muscles like electricity, he said. If you cannot contain it, it will break you. Izuku's stomach churned. All Might's gaze flicked to Izuku's chest. And, he added, your Drago. End system, your heat core, will respond to that surge. Izuku swallowed. So, it'll make the dragon stronger. All Might nodded grimly. It will pour fuel on your furnace, he said. Izuku's hands tightened around his water bottle. So, should I not take it? Izuku asked quietly. All Might looked at him. The silence stretched. Then All Might's expression softened. I am not asking you to be fearless, All Might said. I am asking you to be worthy. Izuku blinked rapidly. All Might leaned closer. That means understanding risks, All Might said. Training anyway. Choosing anyway. Izuku's throat tightened. He thought of the beach. The trash. The pain. The discipline. He thought of Bakugo's words. Take a swan dive. He thought of the sludge villain suffocating him. And the dragon inside him clawing its way to the surface to survive. Izuku inhaled slowly. I want it, he said. Even if it's scary. All Might's smile returned, wobbly and proud. Good, he said, voice thick. Because you will need courage every day from here on. 5. The last day, the beach looks different. 10 months later, Dagoba Beach looked like a miracle. Not clean, beaches never stayed clean. But the mountains of trash were gone. Sand was visible again. The air smelled like salt instead of rust. Izuku stood there, sweaty and exhausted, staring at the transformation with disbelief. He did that. He really did that. All Might stood beside him. Arms folded. Young Midoriya, he said, voice bright, you have done it. Izuku turned, grinning so hard his face hurt. I did it, he said. I really. Then he realized. All Might was holding something in his hand. A small bent spoon. Izuku blinked. What's that? All Might's eyes twinkled. The vessel of destiny, All Might declared it. A spoon. All Might nodded. Izuku's smile twitched. Is this a metaphor? All Might placed the spoon in Izuku's palm. Then he pulled a single blonde hair from his head, one hair, like it was nothing. And held it out. Ingest this, All Might said. Izuku froze. Eat it. All Might nodded with all the seriousness of a man asking someone to swallow a nuclear reactor. Izuku's throat closed. Is it sanitary? All Might coughed. It is, the method, he said. Izuku stared at the hair like it was a venomous worm. Then he remembered every bruise, every bag, every day he'd wanted to quit and didn't. He took a deep breath. If this gives me one for all, Izuku said, I'll eat a whole wig. All Might blinked, then burst out laughing, loud and genuine. That's the spirit, he boomed. Izuku swallowed hard. Then, before he could overthink it, he placed the hair on his tongue and swallowed. It was nothing, just a hair, a moment, a breath. Izuku blinked. Did it work? He asked, confused. All Might's smile widened. It will take time to transfer. All Might said. Be patient. Izuku nodded slowly. Then, a warmth bloomed behind his ribs. Izuku froze. It wasn't the dragon furnace. It was something else. Something bigger. Like a second heartbeat igniting under his skin. All Might's expression shifted, serious, watchful. Young Midoriya, he warned, if you feel pain. Izuku's chest tightened. The warmth surged. And slammed into the dragon furnace like a meteor hitting a volcano. Izuku's eyes widened. His breath hitched. Heat, pressure, power. His skin prickled violently. Scales erupted along his forearms like brie. Hacking glass through flesh, only it didn't cut him. It armored him. His back burned so sharply he cried out. All Might moved instantly, bracing him. Izuku's jaw clenched as his teeth ached, sharpening. His vision tinted gold at the edges. And then, Izuku inhaled, and his lungs filled with something that wasn't air. Something like fire. Something like storm pressure. Izuku tried to breathe out normally. And a blast of superheated steam shot from his mouth, slamming into the sand and turning it into glassy clumps. Izuku stared in horror. All Might's face was pale. Contain it. All Might snapped, voice urgent now. Focus. Izuku's hands shook. His knees buckled. The power was too much. It kept climbing. OFA surged through his muscles like lightning. And the dragon furnace answered with a roar. Not an actual roar, yet, but a vibration in his bones. Izuku squeezed his eyes shut. I am Midoriya Izuku. He heard All Might's voice, distant but steady. You're safe. You're in control. Breathe. Uku forced his breath into a pattern, slow in, slow out. The exhale hissed hot, but smaller, controlled. Again, in, out. The heat trembled, fought him, then eased. The scales stopped spreading. His back, pain dulled into a deep ache instead of a tearing burn. Izuku sagged forward, panting. All Might caught him. Izuku opened his eyes, shaky. I didn't explode, he whispered. All Might let out a brea. Like he'd been holding his soul in his chest. All Might said softly. You didn't. Izuku's laugh came out half sob. All Might's hand tightened on his shoulder. That, All Might said, voice firm, was your first lesson. Izuku swallowed, still trembling. What lesson? All Might stared at him with the seriousness of a man looking at both hope and disaster in the same boy. One for all isn't just strength, he said. It is a storm. Izuku's chest still hummed with it. And your dragon, All Might continued, gaze flicking to the fading scales, is a furnace. Izuku's throat tightened. All Might leaned closer. If you pour a storm into a furnace, All Might said quietly, you do not get a campfire. Izuku swallowed, understanding sinking in like a stone. You get a wildfire. All Might nodded once. So from this moment onward, All Might said, your training is not about becoming powerful. Izuku stared at him. All Might's eyes were fierce. It's about learning to be safe, All Might said. Even when you could be catastrophic. Izuku's hands trembled as the last scales retracted under his skin. The power stayed. The furnace stayed. The storm stayed. And for the first time, Izuku truly understood. This wasn't going to be a simple hero story. This was going to be a story about holding back something massive. And choosing, every single day, not to burn the world down. All Might straightened. Smile returning, small but real. Now, he said, voice brightening as if trying to lighten the moment, we begin the next phase. Izuku blinked weakly. Next phase. All Might pointed toward the city. Hi, he said. Izuku's heart jumped. All Might's grin widened. Let's make you a hero, he declared. And deep inside Izuku's chest, the furnace hummed. Not angry. Not wild. Just awake. The weirdest part about inheriting the power of the world's greatest hero wasn't the strength. It wasn't the fact that Izuku Midoriya's muscles now felt like coiled springs, or that his Heartbeat sometimes sounded like thunder in his ears. It wasn't even the dragon furnace in his chest, hot, hungry, patient. The weirdest part was this. He still had to take an entrance exam. Like the universe looked at him, dragon scales, superpower inheritance, near-death experiences, and went, cool story. Now fill out the paperwork and try not to die. And Izuku, honestly, Izuku loved that, because it meant this wasn't a fairy tale. This was a path, and paths were something you could walk, one step at a time. Even if your steps left scorch marks. The week before UA, learning not to explode. All Might didn't let Izuku test one for all the way Izuku wanted. There would be no dramatic punches that blew holes in mountains. No triumphant, Detroit smash, into the sea. Not yet, because the day Izuku swallowed that hair, All Might had watched the dragon scales rise like armor reacting to a war drum, and he had seen, in the span of 10 seconds, what Izuku could become by accident. So All Might made rules. Boring rules. Annoying rules. Rules that saved lives. Rule 1. One for all is never activated unless you can immediately stop it. Rule 2. Dragon breath is never released unless you know where it will land. Rule 3. You are not allowed to push through heat pressure. Not in training. Not in a fight. Not ever. Izuku wrote the rules down in big block letters in a new notebook titled Midoriya Izuku, Do Not Die Journal. All Might approved. Then All Might handed him another notebook. Izuku opened it and found charts. Heat spikes. Oxygen debt. Pulse rate ranges. Forms labeled in All Might's messy handwriting. Ember state, form 0, warmth, minor ridges, heat resistance. Drake form 1, scale spread, clawed fingers, steam burst, tail nub under stress. Wyvern, form 2, wings, roar shockwave. Real flight potential, very dangerous. True dragon, form 3, do not even think about it, young Midoriya. Izuku stared. Is this a scientific study? He asked. All Might, in thin form, looked deeply offended. It's a survival guide, he said. Izuku's mouth went dry. So you think you'll reach form 2? All Might's eyes sharpened. If you don't, good. If you do, you'd better reach it with control. Izuku nodded, and the furnace in his chest pulsed once, like it took that as a challenge. That same week, All Might introduced the first piece of gear. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't cool. It looked like something pulled from a construction site. A thick brace that wrapped around Izuku's forearm with a small vented plate near the wrist. All Might held it up like it was holy. This, he said, is your first prototype heat vent. Izuku blinked. What does it do? All Might grinned. It keeps you FR. Izuku put it on. It felt heavy. Secure. Like a reminder, your body is a weapon. Whether you want it to be or not. And then training became, strangely calm. All Might didn't teach Izuku how to hit harder. He taught him how to breathe. Literally. Your dragon core builds pressure, All Might explained. Your instinct is to release it explosively. But heroes do not explode randomly. Izuku nodded, sweating. All Might held up 2 fingers. 2 types of release, he said. Burst release and controlled vent. He pointed to the sand. Burst release is what happened the day you inherited One for All. Izuku swallowed. All Might pointed to the vent brace. Controlled vent is this. Then All Might made Izuku stand, inhale, build pressure until his chest felt painfully tight. And exhale through the vent. The first time, Izuku panicked. The steam hissed out sideways, blowing sand into his own face. He coughed, choked, flailed, and almost fell over. All Might caught him by the collar like a disappointed dad. Again, All Might said. Izuku blinked through watery eyes. Again, All Might nodded. Again, quote. Izuku did it again. It hurt less. The steam came out cleaner. The sand didn't blind him this time. All Might nodded once. Again. By the end of the week, Izuku could do it without shaking. Not perfectly, but enough. Enough to walk into UA without being a bomb with legs. On the last day before the exam, All Might stood beside him at the beach and said something that stuck in Izuku's bones. Power is easy, All Might said. Izuku blinked. Easy. All Might's smile turned grim. Any fool can destroy, All Might said. Especially one who feels cornered. Izuku's fingers curled unconsciously. All Might leaned closer. But control, All Might said softly. Control is what separates a hero from a disaster. Izuku swallowed. Your quirk wants to be a disaster, All Might continued. Gaze steady. It's built like one. Heat, pressure, armor, instincts. Izuku's throat tightened. All Might's voice softened. So your job is to make a choice, he said. Every day. Izuku nodded slowly. All Might's smile returned. Now go, he said. Show them you can be safe. Izuku's heart hammered. Safe. It sounded small, but it felt enormous. 2 UA. High. The gate that felt like destiny. The morning of the entrance exam, Izuku stood outside UA's gates with his backpack on and his nerves attempting to claw their way out of his throat. He could see other applicants, some showing off casually. Like it was a playground. A boy with engines in his calves revving quietly. A girl adjusting her gloves like she was about to spar. Someone turning their fingers into metal. Izuku swallowed. His furnace stayed quiet, but he could feel it. Always there. Always listening. Don't lose control, he told himself. Don't flare. Don't roar. Don't. A familiar voice cut through the noise like a siren. Move. You extras. Izuku flinched. Iida Tenya, tall, strict-looking, glasses catching light, was chopping through the crowd with angry precision. You are blocking the entrance. This is the top hero academy in Japan. Have some respect for order. Everyone stared at him. Izuku stared too, half fascinated, half terrified. Then, because the universe enjoyed comedy, Izuku's foot caught on nothing. And he stumbled forward. He almost fell. And a hand caught his arm. A girl with brown hair, round eyes, and a gentle smile steadied him. You okay? She asked. Izuku's face went instantly nuclear. I'm fine. He squeaked, straightening so fast he nearly whiplashed himself. Sorry, thank you, She blinked, amused. You're kind of cute when you panic, she said casually. Izuku's brain blue screened. Steam threatened to leak out of his ears. He clapped both hands over his mouth like that would keep his dignity from escaping. She laughed softly. Relax. We're all nervous. Izuku lowered his hands, cheeks burning. Good luck, he managed. You too, she said, and walked ahead. Izuku watched her go, heart pounding. Then he realized something horrifying. His chest felt warm. Not fear warm. Embarrassment warm. The furnace liked emotion. No, Izuku warned it internally. Not now. The warmth eased. He exhaled slowly. Okay. He could do this. He had rules. He had training. He had a vent brace and a dream. He walked through the gates. And suddenly, the world narrowed into something sharp and real. This is it. This is where heroes begin. 3 present mics welcome. Loud enough to shake your soul. The applicants were herded into a massive room. Izuku clutched his notebook so hard the cover bent. Then present mic, real present mic, not just a TV voice, burst onto the stage like a sound grenade. Welcome, future heroes. The room shook. Izuku nearly fell over again. Present mic grinned, pointing dramatically. Today you'll be taking a practical exam. You'll be fighting villain bots. A screen lit up with robot images. Izuku's brain switched into analysis mode automatically. 2 pointers, 3 pointers, 1 pointers. Then present mic said the words Izuku dreaded. No quirk restrictions. A ripple of excitement ran through the crowd. Izuku's throat tightened. No restrictions meant he could use his powers. But it also meant if he lost control, there'd be witnesses. Cameras. Teachers. Officials. The Hero Commission maybe. His stomach churned. Present mic continued explaining. Points based on robot takedowns, 0 points for rescue, etc. Izuku nodded along, but his mind kept circling back to the same thought. If I show too much, will they think I'm a threat? He thought of the sludge villain screaming, what the hell are you? He thought of All Might, be safe. He thought of Bakugo, take a swan dive. His fingers tightened. Then a calm voice whispered in his mind, steady as a hand on his shoulder. I am Midoriya Izuku. I save people. He inhaled, exhaled. The furnace stayed quiet. Okay. 4. The exam begins. Controlled chaos. The arena was a fake city. Concrete streets. Building facades. Alleyways. And the moment the gate opened, everyone exploded forward like a stampede. Izuku froze for half a second, because his brain did what it always did. Analyzed. Panicked. Overthought. Go. Present mic shouted over speakers. Izuku forced his legs to move. He sprinted forward, heart pounding. A 2-point robot clanked around a corner. Izuku's instinct screamed, "Hit it." OFA hummed under his skin, begging to surge. The dragon furnace warmed, curious. Izuku clenched his fists. No, not a full punch. Not yet. He darted sideways, grabbed a chunk of loose concrete, and tossed it at the robot's sensor panel. The robot turned. Izuku ushed in and slammed the heel of his palm into its joint. Not OFA. Just trained strength. Metal creaked. The robot wobbled. Izuku yanked its arm, twisted, and drove it down, hard, onto the pavement until its head snapped off. It collapsed. 2 points. Izuku blinked. He did that without blowing up. He exhaled shakily. Okay, he muttered. Okay, I can do this. Another robot appeared. Then another. Izuku moved like he'd practiced. Dodge. Disable joints, use environment. He wasn't the flashiest, but he was efficient. He could feel the heat building slowly, though, like his body didn't like being restrained. His throat tightened. He tapped the vent brace once. A small hiss of steam escaped. Pressure released. No one noticed. Good. He took down a 3-pointer by shoving it into a wall and snapping its neck joint with brute leverage. He avoided big attacks. He avoided letting the dragon show itself. He was almost proud of how controlled he was. Then he heard Bakugo. A blast echoed down the street. Izuku flinched as a robot exploded into shrapnel. Bakugo was ahead, grinning like he was having fun at a carnival. His explosions were precise, violent, confident. He was racking points like it was nothing. Izuku SWA don't compare. He turned away and kept moving. But his heart still squeezed. Bakugo looked like a hero already. Izuku felt like a guy trying not to turn into a monster. 5. The shift, when the world starts looking like prey. Halfway through, Izuku realized something. The exam wasn't exhausting him the way he expected. His body was stronger now. OFA stabilized his USCLES even when he wasn't activating it. And the dragon furnace was adapting. The heat spikes weren't as sharp. The scales didn't try to erupt as easily. He felt steady. For the first time in his life, Izuku felt like his body wasn't fighting him. He almost smiled. Then the ground shook. A horn blared. Present Mike's voice boomed through speakers. "Watch out, kids. Here comes the big one." Izuku's blood turned to ice. A massive robot rose at the far end of the street like a moving building. 0-pointer. No points. Just a giant hazard meant to scare them. Students screamed and scattered. Izuku stepped backward instinctively. The robot's shadow fell across the street. Its foot slammed down and cracked the road. Concrete chunks flew. Izuku's eyes widened. That wasn't just a test. That could kill someone. He spun, searching for people, and spotted her, the brown-haired girl, Uraraka. She was running, but debris collapsed in front of her, blocking the path. She stumbled backward, and her foot slipped. She fell hard, right in the 0-pointer's path. Izuku's breath stopped. The world narrowed. Time slowed. He saw the robot's foot rising again. He saw Uraraka's wide eyes. He heard something in his chest. Not OFA. Not fear. The dragon furnace surged awake like a beast smelling blood. Protect. The whisper didn't say bite this time. It said something worse. It said, burn the threat. Izuku's skin prickled. His hands shook. His pulse thundered. Then his mind snapped to All Might's voice. Heroes do not explode randomly. Izuku inhaled hard. He made a choice. He ran. 6-1 for all plus Dragon Core, the first true test. Izuku sprinted toward Uraraka, legs pumping like pistons. The ground shook with each step of the 0-pointer. Pieces of concrete fell like rain. Uraraka tried to crawl backward, but her ankle twisted, and pain flashed across her face. Izuku reached her, and grabbed her under the arms. Hold on, he shouted. She stared at him, stunned. What are you? Izuku didn't answer, because if he answered, he might hesitate. He hauled her up and shoved her behind him, toward a safer alley. Run, he yelled. Uraraka blinked. But you. Izuku turned back to the 0-pointer. It was too close. One step away. He could feel the air pressure from its movement. He could smell dust and metal. His chest burned. OFA roared under his skin, begging to surge. The dragon furnace answered with heat, pressure. Something primal clawing up his throat. Izuku's hands clenched. If he punched it with OFA, he might shatter his arm. If he breathed fire, if he used a burst release, he could melt concrete. Set the whole street ablaze, hurt people. He needed something else. Something controlled. His lungs filled. Not with air. With heat. With pressure. Izuku's jaw ached. His teeth felt sharper. His skin prickled. Scales tried to surface across his forearms. He let them. Just a little. Armor, not takeover. Then Izuku did what All Might trained him to do. He didn't scream. He didn't rage. He exhaled deliberately, not into the street, not into buildings, but downward, right into the pavement. And he did it with sound. A sound that came from his bones. A deep, vibrating force. A roar. The air in front of him warped. The roar slammed into the ground like a shockwave. Concrete cracked in a circle around his feet. And the slab beneath the 0-pointer's raised foot fractured. The robot's balance shifted. Its foot dipped unexpectedly. And instead of crushing Uraraka's position, it slammed into the broken pavement a meter short, driving itself into its own crater. The impact shook the street. Dust exploded. Izuku staggered backward, throat burning like he'd swallowed lava. He coughed, choking on hot air. But the robot was off balance, stuck, and Uraraka was alive. Izuku's eyes widened. He did that. He used the dragon without burning the world. He used power like a tool, not a tantrum. For one shining second, Izuku felt like a hero. Then the 0-pointer's head turned. Its sensor locked onto him. And the furnace inside Izuku flared like a predator realizing it had been seen. 7. The moment of choice, fight or flee. The robot moved again, grinding itself free. Its massive arm lifted. Izuku's muscles screamed to move. Run. He could run. The exam didn't require fighting it. He could save himself. But his eyes flicked to Uraraka, still limping, still too close. And he heard All Might's creed like a bell in his skull. I am here. Izuku swallowed blood heat. His vent brace hissed as he released pressure sideways. Steam poured out like a dragon sigh. He steadied his stance. Not to win. To buy time. The robot's arms swung down. Izuku's mind screamed. He activated one for all, just a fraction, through his legs. Not 100%. Not even close. Enough. He launched sideways, SP. Rinting fast enough that the air tore at his face. The arm smashed into the spot he'd been standing, shattering concrete. Izuku skidded, coughing. His throat burned. His scales receded under his sleeves. Uraraka watched, eyes huge. Why are you doing this? She yelled. Izuku's voice came out rough. Because you're hurt. The robot raised its arm again. Izuku's muscles trembled. His chest felt like a furnace packed with lightning. He could feel the feral threshold approaching, not full takeover, but the edge of it. The dragon wanted to end the threat permanently. Izuku clenched his jaw. No, he wasn't going to be a disaster. He wasn't going to be a monster. He was going to be a hero. Izuku took one more breath and released a smaller roar. Not a blast, a concussive push. It hit the robot's elbow joint mid-swing, forcing the arm's trajectory slightly off. The smash missed Uraraka's path by inches. Uraraka limped into the alley. Safe. Izuku's knees buckled. His throat spasmed. He coughed hard, tasting copper. The robot paused. Then, as if satisfied it had chased off prey, it turned away, stomping toward another street. Izuku collapsed onto his hands and knees. His whole body shook. His chest still hummed with leftover power. But he had done it. He had used a roar to protect someone. Not to destroy. 80 points, infinite meaning. Present Mike's voice boomed. Time's up. Exam over. The gates opened. Staff began herding students out. Izuku tried to stand. His legs wobbled. He took a step. And the world swam. His body screamed at him for what he'd done. The roar had been controlled. But it still took a toll, like compressing a storm into a narrow pipe. He stumbled. Someone caught him. Uraraka. She had returned, limping but upright, and her face was flushed with emotion. You're an idiot, she said. Voice trembling. Izuku blinked, confused. Huh. Uraraka's eyes shone. You could have run, she said. You didn't have to do that. Izuku swallowed, throat raw. I couldn't leave you. Uraraka's lips wobbled. Then she laughed softly, despite herself. Thank you, she whispered. Izuku's heart squeezed. He tried to smile. It probably looked like a grimace. Why, you're welcome. Then his legs gave out. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was the sky above UA, bright, wide, full of possibility. And the faint reflection of scales shimmering under his sleeve. 9. Somewhere above, teachers watching a problem and a promise. In a high observation room, the UA staff watched replays. Aizawa Shota sat slouched in his chair, eyes half-lidded, but his gaze was sharp. Recovery girl leaned forward, squinting. Smintas murmured, that shockwave, it wasn't a standard sound quirk. Present Mike whistled. Kids got L. Nezu, the principal, smiled faintly, hands folded. On screen, Izuku's roar shattered the pavement in a controlled circle. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. He didn't hit the robot, Aizawa said. Recovery girl blinked. What? He didn't go for points, Aizawa continued. He went for rescue. Nezu's smile deepened. And he demonstrated restraint, Nezu added. Aizawa snorted. Restraint. Nezu gestured at the slow-motion frame where scales briefly appeared. That child, Nezu said softly, is holding back something that wants to be catastrophic. Recovery girl frowned. That's concerning. Nezu's eyes glinted. It's also, Nezu said, very heroic. Aizawa leaned back, rubbing his eyes. Or it's a future disaster, he muttered. Nezu tilted his head. Then it is our job, Nezu said, to make sure it becomes the first thing. Aizawa didn't look convinced. But he didn't argue. 10. The letter. The gate opens. Izuku woke up at home with a sore throat, bruised knees, and a heart full of dread. He didn't remember getting home. His mom hovered like a worried ghost, forcing soup into him and checking his forehead every 10 minutes. 2 days passed. Then the letter arrived. UA's envelope sat in Izuku's hands like a bomb. His fingers trembled as he opened it. A small device popped out and projected a hologram. All Might appeared in front of him, smiling brightly. Izuku's breath hitched. Young Midoriya. All Might boomed from the projection. Congratulations. Izuku's eyes widened. All Might continued, explaining scores. And then he said something that made Izuku's brain melt. Villain points are not all we measure, All Might said, eyes shining. Rescue points. The screen showed Uraraka falling. Izuku running. Izuku roaring. Uraraka escaping. Izuku collapsing. Izuku's throat tightened. All Might smiled. You showed the heart of a hero, All Might said. So welcome. The hologram leaned closer. To UA. Hi. Izuku's knees hit the floor. He didn't even realize he'd fallen. Tears blurred his vision. His mom cried too, hugging him so tight he couldn't breathe. Izuku laughed and sobbed at the same time. All Might's voice echoed from the hologram like a promise. This is where you will learn to become the symbol of peace. Izuku clutched the letter to his chest. And deep inside him, the dragon furnace hummed. Not angry. Not wild. Almost satisfied. Because the world had finally said it. Not monster. Not disaster. Not quirkless. Not impossible. Hero. And Izuku Midoriya, boy with a storm in his muscles and a dragon in his bones, whispered to himself. I'm in. The roar of the crowd didn't sound like cheering. It sounded like the ocean, too big. Too loud, too hungry. 80,000 voices slammed together into one living thing, a monster made of excitement and expectation, shaking the stadium's bones. Izuku stood in the tunnel with Class 1A, staring at the blinding light ahead. He could feel it. Not one for all. Not his nerves. The dragon furnace. It purred under his ribs like this. Like it had been waiting for a stage big enough to justify its existence. Uraraka nudged him gently. Hey, you're shaking. Izuku blinked hard. I'm not. He looked down at his hands. His fingers trembled. Not from weakness. From restraint. From the pressure building in his chest because his body thought. Big crowd. Big threat. Big moment. Become big. Izuku swallowed. He forced his shoulders down. Forced his breathing slow. All Might's voice echoed in his skull like a lifeline. Power is easy. Control is heroism. The announcer's voice boomed across the stadium. And now, the first-year Hero Course students. The tunnel lights flashed. Class 1A surged forward. Izuku stepped into the stadium. And the ocean of sound hit him like a wave. For half a second, his world narrowed into heat, light, and instinct. And the dragon inside him whispered. Thrilled. Show them. 2 weeks earlier, Aizawa's first lesson. UA didn't begin with friendship speeches or inspiring hero posters. It began with a man in AS. Leaping bags staring at them like they were disappointments waiting to happen. Aizawa Shota shuffled into the classroom, hair wild, eyes half dead. "Welcome to UA," he said flatly. "Put on your PE uniforms. We're doing a quirk apprehension test." The class erupted instantly. "What? No orientation?" Kaminari whined. "Isn't there supposed to be like, a ceremony?" Mina asked. Aizawa's gaze slid over them like a knife. "If you want ceremonies, go to some other school," he said. "This is hero training. The world doesn't care about your feelings." Izuku's spine went straight. He didn't mind harsh. Harsh meant real. Aizawa's eyes landed on him, lingering for half a heartbeat longer than the others. Izuku felt his furnace stir like a dog noticing a stranger. Aizawa looked away. "Outside," he ordered. On the field, Aizawa explained each test with the enthusiasm of someone reading a grocery list. 50-meter dash, grip strength, standing long jump, side steps, ball throw. Then he said the sentence that made Izuku's stomach drop. "Worst score gets expelled." The class went silent. Uraraka's face went pale. Expelled." Aizawa didn't blink. "We don't have time for tourists." Izuku swallowed. "Okay. Control. Survive. Don't flare." The tests began. Izuku did fine. He wasn't the best, but he wasn't helpless anymore. Then came the ball throw. Aizawa handed him the ball and a glance that felt like a warning. "Midoriya," Aizawa said, voice flat. "Quirk." Izuku hesitated, just enough for the furnace to pulse. One for all hummed under his skin like a storm behind a wall. Draconid, the dragon core, warmed in response. As if it recognized the storm. "One for all," Izuku said carefully. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. "And the scales." Izuku froze. He hadn't told anyone. Not officially. Not in the paperwork. Not in anything he could be punished for. But Aizawa had seen it anyway. Izuku's throat tightened. "That's another quirk thing. It's complicated." Aizawa stared at him like he was deciding whether complicated was worth the risk. Then Aizawa pointed at the throwing line. "Do it." Izuku stepped up, ball in hand. He could hear his heartbeat. He could hear other heartbeats. The dragon furnace liked that too, like the awareness. The senses sharpening. Izuku clenched the ball. If he used too much one for all, he'd shatter his arm. If the core flared, he'd release heat and pressure in front of everyone. He looked down at the brace on his wrist, the vent prototype All Might helped him build. He exhaled slowly. Small. Controlled. Safe. He activated one for all, just a thin thread, through his shoulder and back. Not a blast. Not a smash. A quiet hum in his muscles. Then he threw. The ball launched like a cannonball. The scoreboard flickered. 705.3 meters. The class erupted. Kaminari screamed. Kirishima's eyes sparkled. Manly. Even Todoroki's gaze sharpened, interested. Izuku stood there, stunned, relief flooding him. Until he realized his chest felt tight. The storm had surged. The furnace had answered. His throat heated painfully. The skin on his forearms prickled. Izuku looked down, and saw faint ridges shimmer under the fabric, trying to become scales. His vision narrowed. He could feel the instinct rising like a tide. Bigger. Stronger. Show them. Izuku's breath hitched. A tiny hiss escaped the seam of his vent brace as he dumped pressure sideways. Steam puffed into the air and vanished. No one noticed. Except Aizawa. Aizawa's eyes sharpened, red glow flickering faintly. And the prickling on Izuku's skin eased abruptly, like someone turned down the volume. Izuku blinked hard. Aizawa's quirk. Erasure. Aizawa stared at him, expression unreadable. Then he spoke, quiet, only for Izuku. "That thing inside you," Aizawa murmureo be impressed by applause. Izuku swallowed, throat sore. Aizawa's eyes were flat as storm clouds. "Don't become a disaster just because you can," he said. Then, louder to the class. "Next." Izuku stepped back, heart pounding. He should have felt proud. Instead, he felt like he'd just glimpsed the edge of a cliff. 2 USJ, the first time the dragon wanted blood. The first villain attack didn't happen on a dramatic rooftop. It happened on a school trip. Because the world loved irony. USJ smelled like artificial ocean and fresh concrete. The facility was built to simulate disasters, fires, floods, landslides, collapses. Aizawa stood in front of them, scarf hanging loose. Eyes tired. "You're not here to fight," he said. "You're here to rescue." Izuku nodded. Rescue meant control. Then the air warped. A black mist opened in the center of the plaza like a wound in reality. And villains poured out like infection. Izuku's body reacted before his mind did. Heat surged up behind his ribs, wild an instant. Scales tried to erupt across his arms like his skin knew it was about to bleed. His senses sharpened. Too sharp. He smelled sweat, oil, blood, fear. He heard screams. A voice laughed, scratchy and delighted. "Symbol of peace isn't here, huh?" A pale young man with a hand on his face stepped forward. "Shigaraki." Izuku's mouth went dry. Aizawa stepped in front of the class. "Stay behind me," Aizawa ordered. Then he moved, and the world turned into chaos. Villains surged. Aizawa fought like a ghost, scarf snapping like a weapon, eyes glowing red. Izuku's class scattered as the portal warped them away. Izuku felt the tug of teleportation. And then he slammed into shallow water, coughing. He surfaced with Tsuyu clinging to a nearby piece of wreckage and Mineta squealing like he was dying. "Midoriya-chan," Tsuyu shouted. "We're in the flood zone." Izuku's heart pounded. Villains waded through the water, grinning. Izuku's furnace flared. Water. Cold. Threat. Burn it. The dragon wanted to turn the whole zone into boiling steam. Izuku clenched his fists. "No," he whispered. He couldn't roast villains and friends and drown everyone in scalding fog. He forced himself to breathe. Then he made a plan, fast. "Tsuyu," he yelled. "Get Mineta to high ground. I'll clear a path." Mineta screamed. "Clear a path? With what?" Izuku didn't answer. He activated One for All, just enough to leap, then landed on a wrecked boat with a splash. His vent brace hissed as pressure built. He aimed downward, not at bodies. At water. Izuku exhaled a controlled burst. A jet of superheated steam shot into the water, instantly turning the surface into a thick fog bank. Not boiling, not lethal, just opaque. "Now!" Izuku shouted. Tsuyu moved instantly, tongue snapping out to pull Mineta onto debris. Izuku's throat burned. His chest tightened. The fog helped, but it fed the furnace. It liked the release. Izuku heard a villain's footsteps approaching through the mist. His pupils narrowed. For a heartbeat, his mind slipped into predator logic. There. Threat. End it. His teeth ached. His jaw felt wrong. His hands curled like claws. Tsuyu's voice cut through. "Midoriya-chan." Izuku blinked hard. The moment snapped. He threw himself into Moshio. And instead, using One for All to propel a kick into a villain's chest, launching him backward into the water. Not deadly. Just disabling. He kept moving, breath controlled, vent hissing in small bursts. By the time the flood zone villains realized what was happening, Tsuyu and Mineta were escaping into the main plaza. Izuku followed, throat raw, chest aching. When they regrouped, the scene was worse. Aizawa was bleeding. A giant Nomu stood behind Shigaraki like a biological nightmare. And All Might wasn't there. Izuku's stomach turned to ice. Shigaraki laughed, scratching at his neck. Then, finally, All Might arrived. The air shifted when he entered, like gravity changed. Izuku's chest flared with something bright and painful, relief. All Might fought the Nomu. The entire plaza shook. And through it all, Izuku watched two things at once. 1. How All Might never lost control. 2. 3. How close Izuku had come to losing his. 4. After the villains retreated, and ambulances arrived, and everyone started breathing again. Aizawa looked at Izuku in the hallway outside Recovery Girl's office. "You didn't explode," Aizawa said flatly. Izuku swallowed, throat still sore. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. "But you wanted to," Aizawa added. Izuku's hands tightened at his sides. Aizawa leaned closer, voice low. "That thing in you," he said, "is going to offer you shortcuts. Brutal ones." Izuku nodded shakily. Aizawa's voice hardened. "If you take them," he said, "you'll stop being a student here." Izuku's heart thudded. "I won't," Izuku promised. Aizawa stared a moment longer. Then he turned away. "Good," he muttered. "Because the world already has enough monsters." Izuku stood there, breathing carefully, as the furnace hummed under his ribs, quietly offended. 3. The festival announcement, a stage the dragon wanted. A few days after USJ, UA did the most UA thing possible. They announced the sports festival. The class exploded. A festival. After villains attacked us. Kaminari cried. Kirishima grinned. That's so hardcore. Iida chopped the air. It's a demonstration to the public that UA remains strong. It's logical. Izuku sat quietly, stomach heavy. Sports festival meant eyes, cameras, public judgment, and the dragon in his chest. Like the idea. At lunch, Todoroki sat across from Izuku for the first time. He stared at Izuku like he was studying a problem. Your heat output, Todoroki said flatly, isn't just from one for all. Izuku froze mid-bite. Todoroki's gaze was calm, clinical. It spikes when you're emotional, Todoroki continued. And it drops sharply when you vent. Izuku swallowed. Yeah, he admitted carefully. Todoroki's eyes flicked to Izuku's wrist brace. That's a limiter, Todoroki said. More like, a lifesaver, Izuku muttered. Todoroki leaned forward slightly. My ice, he said, can shock temperature systems. Izuku's chest tightened. Todoroki continued like he was discussing weather. If I drop your core temperature suddenly, he said, your pressure cycle might destabilize. Izuku stared. Todoroki's gaze sharpened. Don't lose control, Todoroki said. Then he stood and walked away like that was the end of the conversation. Izuku sat there, ill despite the furnace under his ribs. Because the scariest part wasn't Todoroki's threat. It was that it sounded true. Sports festival, obstacle race, don't give them a reason to fear you. Now, in the stadium tunnel, Izuku heard the crowd and felt the furnace stir like a dragon sniffing fresh air. He forced his breathing steady. Uraraka smiled nervously. We're really doing this. Bakugo cracked his neck like he was about to start a war. Todoroki looked bored. Present Mike's voice boomed. First event. Obstacle race. Gates opened. The track stretched ahead like a battlefield. Robots. From the entrance exam towered over the first section, giant metal hulks swinging arms to knock students off course. Then came minefields. Then ravines. Izuku's heart hammered. The horn sounded. And the world exploded into motion. Izuku ran. Not at full one for all, he couldn't afford that. He used small bursts through his legs, controlled like All Might taught him. OFA hummed. The furnace warmed. Robots swung. Students scattered. Izuku ducked under an arm, then rolled, then sprinted up the side of a fallen robot. He could feel the instinct rising. Climb higher. Be above. Own the territory. Izuku swallowed it down. He reached the robot's head, grabbed a loose panel, and yanked. The panel came free like a shield. A robot arm swung toward him. Izuku thrust the panel into the joint. Metal jammed. The arm stalled, using the opening. Izuku's chest tightened. Heat built. He vented lightly, hiss, and kept moving. He didn't dominate the race. He didn't want to. He focused on being efficient, safe, human. Then the minefield hit. People hesitated. Izuku's eyes narrowed. The furnace sharpened his senses. He could hear the faint click of pressure triggers. He stepped carefully, weight balanced, toes light. A mine triggered behind him from someone else's mistake. Boom. The blast threw dust and heat across the track. Izuku's instinct snapped. Threat. Attack. Roar. His throat tightened. Ready. Izuku forced himself to breathe out through the vent brace instead. Steam hissed sideways, releasing pressure, keeping the core stable. He moved. The ravine came last, a wide gap with thin beams and ropes. Students fell. Panic spread. Izuku's chest warmed. This was where he could leap far with one for all. This was where he could show power. And the dragon inside him whispered, eager. Fly. Izuku's back ached faintly, those pressure points between his shoulder blades where wing buds wanted to exist. He clenched his jaw. Not yet. He took one controlled one for all burst, legs only, and launched. He landed hard on the far side. Rolling to bleed momentum. His throat burned. He came up coughing, but stable. At the finish line, he placed high. Not first. Todoroki arrived like a snowstorm, clean and untouched. Bakugo arrived like a bomb. Grinning. Izuku crossed after them, breathing hard, sweat-soaked, throat raw. The crowd roared louder. And Izuku realized with a chill. They weren't cheering for him. They were cheering for the idea of a dragon on the battlefield. Aizawa watched from the sidelines, expression flat. Izuku met his gaze. Aizawa didn't smile, but his eyes said, still safe. Keep it that way. 5 Cavalry Battle, Pack Instinct. The second event came with strategy. Cavalry teams of 4, headbands worth points. Defend yours. Steal others. Izuku's placement made him a target. He OD in the waiting area as teams formed around him, some with nervous curiosity, some with predatory greed. Uraraka walked up instantly. Team with me. Izuku blinked. Oh okay. Tokiyami joined, dark shadow looming like a living cloak. Then Shoji stepped in, calm and steady. Izuku stared at them, stunned. You want me on your team? Izuku asked. Uraraka smirked. Duh, you're strong. Tokiyami's voice was solemn. And you do not strike with arrogance. Shoji simply nodded. You don't panic when others are in danger. Izuku's chest warmed. The furnace purred. Pack. Izuku swallowed. Thank you, he whispered. They planned quickly. Shoji would be the base. Tokiyami would defend. Uraraka would lighten them when needed. Izuku would be the threat. The horn sounded. Chaos erupted. Teams swarm. At Izuku's headband immediately like sharks smelling blood. A team lunged. Izuku's instinct screamed to roar, to knock them back with a shockwave. But shockwaves could hurt, so Izuku did something else. He vented hard, steam hissing from his bracers, creating a sudden fog burst in front of them. Visibility dropped. Tokiyami's dark shadow flared in the haze like a nightmare. The attacking team recoiled. Shoji moved, heavy and stable. Uraraka floated them just enough to pivot, avoiding a pileup. They survived the first rush. Izuku's throat burned. His heart hammered. The furnace liked the chaos. It whispered. They're attacking your pack. End them. Izuku clenched his jaw so tight it hurt. No, he whispered. Defend. They held their ground. They stole a few headbands, Tokiyami snatching with dark shadow. Uraraka drifting them into gaps. But in the last 30 seconds, a top team broke through with brute force. Bakugo's squad detonated into the fray, explosions scattering everyone. In the chaos, someone snatched Izuku's headband. Izuku spun. Too late. The horn ended it. Izuku stood panting, sweat dripping, steam curling faintly from his bracers. They still qualified, barely. But the crowd's roar was different now. It wasn't just excitement. It was fascination, like they were watching a dangerous animal behave itself and wondering when it would stop. 6th tournament, Shinso and the first crack in the mask. 1-on-1. This was where reputations were made. Izuku stood across from Shinso Hitoshi. His eyes were tired, sharp, resentful. I've heard things about you, Shinso said calmly. Dragon boy. Izuku flinched. Shinso smirked slightly. Everyone thinks you're special. Everyone thinks you're terrifying. Izuku swallowed. Shinso leaned in. I don't think you're terrifying, he said. I think you're just another privileged hero kid with an overpowered quirk. Izuku's chest tightened. The furnace warmed. Insult. Threat. Prove. Izuku forced himself to breathe. Shinso's eyes gleamed. Tell me, Shinso said softly. What does it feel like to be born a monster and still pretend you're human? Izuku's mouth opened. No, I. The moment he responded, his mind went blank. His body moved on its own. Shinso's quirk. Brainwashing. Izuku's legs stepped forward. His arms lifted. His breath slowed, calm and wrong. The crowd gasped. Shinso smiled, pleased. Walk out of the ring, Shinso ordered gently. Izuku's body obeyed. And deep inside his chest, the dragon furnace flared, furious. Not at Shinso. At the loss of control. A warning siren erupted in Izuku's bones. Heat surged. Pressure spiked. His skin prickled violently under his costume, scales trying to erupt like a safety system. Pain flashed across his knuckles as ridges formed. And the shock of it cracked through the brainwash haze like lightning. Izuku gasped. His eyes snapped wide. He stumbled, catching himself inches from the ring's edge. Shinso's smile vanished. Izuku sucked in air, throat burning. His vent brace hissed in an uncontrolled puff. He shook hard, like he was throwing off a nightmare. I'm here, Izuku whispered, shaky. Shinso stared. You broke it, Shinso muttered. Izuku's chest heaved. I can't, Izuku swallowed, voice raw. I can't let anyone else drive. He stepped forward, slow, deliberate, then used a small one-for-all burst to close distance. One punch. Not full power. Just enough. Shinso flew backward and landed outside the ring. Match over. Izuku stood there, shaking. The crowd roared, but Izuku didn't feel victorious. He felt warned. Because the furnace had tried to solve T. He brainwashing the same way it wanted to solve everything. With force. If the pain hadn't snapped him out, what would the dragon have done? 7th Todoroki, the moment everyone saw the teeth. The next TCH was the one the whole stadium wanted. Midoriya Izuku vs Todoroki Shoto. Two problems. Two prodigies. Two kids carrying power too big for their bodies. They stepped into the ring. Todoroki stared at him with calm intensity. "You're holding back," Todoroki said. Izuku's throat tightened. "I'm trying to be safe," Izuku said. Todoroki's eyes narrowed. "Safety isn't winning," Todoroki said. Izuku swallowed. The horn sounded. Todoroki moved first. Ice exploded across the arena like a glacier being born. It rushed toward Izuku, massive and sharp. Izuku activated one for all through his legs and leapt. But the ice followed, rising, expanding. He landed on a narrow clear patch, breathing hard. Cold bit at his skin. And something strange happened. The furnace inside him stuttered. Not calmed. Shocked. Like dumping ice water into a hot engine. Pain flashed across Izuku's chest. His breathing hitched. Todoroki watched him carefully. Then Todoroki did it again. A sharper burst. Ice lanced upward, surrounding Izuku, closing in. Izuku's chest locked. Heat spiked wildly. Then dipped. Then spiked again. His pressure cycle destabilized. His throat burned like it was trying to cough a roar and couldn't decide how. Izuku stumbled. The world tilted. And the dragon inside him panicked. Cold. Threat. SN erupted in scales across his arms and neck, visible now, shimmering like armor plates. The crowd gasped. Izuku heard it like distant thunder. His jaw ached. His teeth felt too sharp. His eyes narrowed into slit gold for a heartbeat. And the whisper turned ugly. "Bite him." Izuku froze, horrified. Because he realized, the dragon didn't just want to win. It wanted to end the threat in the simplest way possible. Todoroki's eyes widened slightly. For the first time, he looked unsettled. Izuku's breath hitched. A low sound rumbled in his chest. Not a roar yet. A warning growl. The crowd went silent in anticipation. And that was the most dangerous part. Because the dragon loved the silence. It loved the fear. It loved being seen. Izuku clenched his fist so hard his nails bit into his palms. Pain. Anchor. He heard a voice from the stands, Uraraka, shouting his name. Midoriya. Izuku blinked hard. "I am Midoriya Izuku." He forced his lungs to work. He forced the pressure into the vent bracers. Steam hissed violently out of both wrists, dumping heat sideways. The scales didn't vanish, but they stopped spreading. His eyes rounded back. His jaw stopped tightening. He looked at Todoroki, really looked. Todoroki wasn't gloating. He looked like someone watching a storm build in a human body. Izuku swallowed, voice raw. "Your ice messes with my core," Izuku admitted. Todoroki's eyes narrowed. "So it's true." Izuku nodded shakily. Todoroki raised his hand again. Izuku's chest tightened. Then Todoroki said, quietly, almost like a confession, "You're not the only one with a monster inside." Izuku blinked. Todoroki's gaze hardened. "So stop pretending you can be a hero by staying small," Todoroki said. "If you want to save people, use it." Izuku's throat burned. Use it. That's what the dragon wanted too. But Todoroki meant something different. Not surrender. Not feral. Choice. Izuku inhaled. He activated one for all, not full power, but more than before, through his arm. The storm surged. The furnace answered. Izuku felt the scales harden across his forearm like a gauntlet. He didn't roar. He didn't bite. He stepped forward, deliberate, controlled. And punched. Not at Todoroki. At the ice wall. His fist hit with a crack like thunder. Ice shattered. The shockwave rolled outward, controlled, focused. The crowd screamed. Todoroki's eyes widened. Izuku's arm screamed in pain, but it held. He had done it. Power without losing himself. Todoroki took a step back, breathing hard. And the heat in Izuku's chest surged again, unstable from the cold shock. His vision blurred. He felt the feral threshold tugging at him like hands. Todoroki raised his hand, and hesitated. For the first time, Todoroki didn't attack. He stared at Izuku. Then, slowly, Todoroki's other side ignited. Flames burst from his left. Heat poured into the arena, countering the cold. Izuku's chest jolted. The furnace stabilized slightly, relieved. Todoroki's gaze burned with something complicated. I won't win, Todoroki said, voice tight, using only half of myself. Izuku's eyes widened. Then Todoroki attacked with fire. A wave of flame surged. Izuku reacted on instinct. But his instinct wasn't feral. It was trained. He dumped pressure through the vents and exhaled a controlled steam burst, not to burn, but to deflect and disperse. Heat met heat. Steam erupted in a white cloud. The stadium screamed. When it cleared, Izuku stood shaking, throat raw, eyes wet from the pressure. Todoroki stood across from him, breathing hard. For a moment, they just stared, two kids holding back monsters. Then Todoroki moved, fast. Ice and fire combined into a brutal attack pattern. Izuku dodged, slipped, tried to counter. But his legs gave out for half a second, delayed by the unstable core cycle. Todoroki's final blast hit the edge of the ring, shoving Izuku backward. Izuku skidded. His heel crossed the boundary. Match over. Silence. Then the stadium erupted. Todoroki had won. But all anyone could talk about was Izuku Midoriya. The boy who looked like a disaster and still chose control. Izuku stood panting, scales fading slowly. Throat bleeding heat. Todoroki walked past him and paused. You didn't lose yourself, Todoroki said quietly. Izuku swallowed, voice rough. I almost did. Todoroki nodded once. Then you're stronger than you think. Quote. And he walked away. Izuku stood there, trembling as the crowd chanted something he didn't want. Draw gone. Draw gone. His stomach twisted. Because it didn't sound like support. It sounded like they were naming an animal. 8 After, the Hero Commission watches. In a quiet room somewhere far from the stadium, a screen replayed Izuku's match in slow motion. The scales. The slit eyes. The near growl. The moment he stopped it. A suited official leaned forward, fingers steepled. That, the official murmured, is not a normal quirk. Another voice answered, calm and cold. It's a liability. The official's gaze stayed on the footage. Or a deterrent, they said. A third voice, quieter. If he loses control in a populated area. The official cut them off. Then we make sure, the official said. He doesn't. The screen paused on Izuku's face, wide-eyed, terrified of himself, and still standing. The official smiled faintly. Track him, they ordered. 9. End of Chapter 4. The dragon learns the taste of applause. Back in UA's medical wing, Recovery Girl clicked her tongue as she examined Izuku's throat. You've scalded your vocal cords, she snapped. Again. Izuku winced. Sorry. Recovery Girl jabbed him lightly with her cane. Don't apologize. Learn. Izuku nodded weakly. All Might sat beside the bed in thin form, hands folded tight. You were amazing, All Might said softly. Izuku stared at the ceiling. Izuku swallowed, throat burning. I almost bit him. All Might went still. Izuku's hands trembled. I felt it. Like it wasn't even my idea. Like the dragon wanted. All Might's voice cut in, firm but gentle. But you didn't, All Might said. Izuku blinked, eyes stinging. All Might leaned closer. That moment, All Might said quietly, was the whole battle. Izuku swallowed. All Might's gaze was steady. The world saw your power, All Might said. They will be afraid. Some will cheer for the wrong reasons. Izuku's chest tightened. All Might's voice softened. So you must keep choosing the right reason, he said. Izuku nodded slowly. Outside the window, the stadium's distant roar still echoed faintly. And inside Izuku's chest, the furnace hummed. Not angry. Not feral. Not yet. But it remembered the crowd. It remembered the silence. It remembered the fear. And it learned something dangerous. Applause tastes good. Izuku didn't enjoy the way people looked at him after the sports festival. Not the cheering. Not the chanting. Not even the way some students in the hallway whispered, Dragon Boy, like it was a cool nickname. It was the other look. The one adults gave when they smiled too politely. The one classmates gave when they laughed, but stepped half a pace back. The one security cameras gave, silent, unblinking, always recording. Because Izuku had learned something terrifying in the arena. The world didn't just fear villains. The world feared anything it couldn't categorize. And Izuku Midoriya, boy with a storm in his muscles and a furnace in his chest, was becoming something nobody had a neat box for. Hero. Monster. Weapon. Disaster. He tried to ignore it. He tried to focus on training, classwork, improving control. But control wasn't just about breath patterns and vent braces. Control was also about what you did when someone looked at you and decided you were already a threat. Because eventually, someone would say it out loud. 1. Internships. The world gets closer. The hero internship announcements hit Class 1A like lightning. Every student suddenly walked LNDED on their posture. Because it did. Izuku stared at the internship offer list with a knot in his stomach. The sports festival had made him famous. Which meant offers came. A lot of offers. He didn't feel proud. He felt watched. All Might sat with him after class. In thin form, looking tired but steady. You're thinking too hard, All Might said gently. Izuku's fingers tightened around the paper. They're not offering because they like me, he admitted. Some of them are offering because they want to see what I can do. All Might nodded once. Yes. Izuku blinked. That's it. Just, yes. All Might smiled faintly. Being seen is not always safety, he said. But it is reality. Izuku swallowed. All Might leaned closer. So pick a mentor who will teach you what you need, he said, not someone who wants to parade you. Izuku looked down at the offers again. There were flashy agencies, big names, media-heavy heroes, and one offer that felt quieter. A hero known for control. Gran Torino. Izuku's eyes widened. He's All Might's mentor. All Might's expression turned complicated, pride and dread mixed together. If you train with him, All Might warned, he will not be gentle. Izuku nodded. Good, All Might said. Neither is the world. Izuku chose Gran Torino. And the moment he did, the knot in his stomach eased just a little. Because at least he wouldn't be treated like a circus act. He'd be treated like a problem that needed solving. That, oddly enough, felt kinder. 2. A city that smells like blood. Hose, U City was loud in a different way than the sports festival. Not cheering loud. Sirens loud. Traffic loud. Crowd loud. The kind of loud that meant real lives were moving and colliding and breaking every second. Izuku stood on a rooftop with Gran Torino, wind whipping his hair. The old hero looked like someone's grumpy grandpa who accidentally wandered onto a battlefield. Which, Izuku was learning, was exactly the point. Gran Torino eyed Izuku's brace setup, both wrists vented, reinforced, with emergency releases built in. HMPH. Gran Torino grunted. You've got training wheels. Izuku flushed. They're not. I mean, they help me control. Gran Torino smacked him in the head with a cane. Control isn't gear, Gran Torino snapped. Gear is a backup. You can't rely on it. You rely on you. Izuku rubbed his head, wincing. Yes, sir. Gran Torino stared at him for a long moment. Then he said, like he was discussing weather. You smell different than All Might. Izuku froze. Gran Torino's nose wrinkled. Not bad. Just hot. Like a forge. Izuku's chest warmed involuntarily, the furnace recognizing the attention. Gran Torino's eyes narrowed. Don't flare, he barked. Izuku forced his breathing slow. Gran Torino nodded, satisfied. Good, he muttered. Because you're going to learn something today. He pointed at the streets below. Real hero work isn't about winning, Gran Torino said. It's about arriving in time. Izuku swallowed. Arriving. Gran Torino's eyes sharpened. Before someone dies, he said. The words hit heavy. Izuku nodded slowly. And in his chest, the furnace hummed, quiet, awake, listening. 3. The first patrol. Instinct wants to choose for him. Patrol work wasn't glamorous. It was running, listening, scanning crowds. Izuku found it surprisingly hard, not physically, but mentally. Because the dragon core sharpened his senses. He could hear heartbeats in a crowd if he focused too much. He could smell adrenaline. He could smell fear. And once he smelled fear, something inside him wanted to act. Not calmly. Not strategically. Fast. Violent. Definitive. Gran Torino noticed immediately. Izuku's head snapped toward an alley as a faint scream echoed. He moved instinctively. Gran Torino grabbed his collar. Wait, Gran Torino snapped. Izuku trembled with urgency. Someone. Gran Torino's eyes were sharp. And what if it's a prank? Or bait? Or a civilian arguing with a friend? Your instincts are not proof. Izuku swallowed hard. He hated that Gran Torino was right. Gran Torino released him. But his voice was firm. You don't get to become a beast that reacts to every stimulus, Gran Torino said. You are not a guard dog. Izuku flinched. Gran Torino leaned in. You are a hero, he said. Which means you decide. Izuku's hands clenched. He forced himself to breathe. The furnace settled, grumbling, but obeying. Gran Torino nodded once. Now, he said, we investigate. Carefully. They found a civilian who'd tripped and scared themselves. No villain. No trap. Izuku exhaled slowly, embarrassed. Gran Torino snorted. Good lesson. Izuku nodded, cheeks hot. He wanted to be faster. Stronger. More like All Might. But every time he tried to chase urgency too hard, the furnace lit up like it wanted permission to take over. And Izuku was learning the hardest truth of all. Sometimes the difference between hero and monster was not power. It was patience. Fort news break. The hero killer moves. The next day, the city's atmosphere changed. It wasn't subtle. You could feel it in the way heroes moved faster. In the way civilians checked over their shoulders more. In the way police radios crackled without stopping. Izuku stood beside Gran Torino as He watched a news broadcast playing on a public screen. A reporter spoke with a voice trying not to tremble. Another pro-hero attacked late last night. Authorities confirm this bears the signature of the hero killer. Izuku's stomach tightened. Gran Torino's eyes narrowed. Stain, Gran Torino muttered. Izuku blinked. You know him. Gran Torino's mouth twisted. Everyone knows him, he said. Because fear is excellent marketing. On screen, the reporter continued. A vigilante calling himself Stain has targeted heroes he deems unworthy. Public opinion remains divided. Divided. Izuku stared. Why would anyone be divided about a man stabbing heroes? Gran Torino grunted like he read Izuku's thoughts. People are stupid, Gran Torino said. But Stain is worse. He glanced at Izuku, eyes sharp. Because he's not just killing. Gran Torino said. He's recruiting. Izuku's throat went dry. Recruiting. Gran Torino nodded once. He's turning cynicism into worship, he said. He makes scared people feel righteous. Izuku's chest warmed, anger this time. The furnace responded instantly, pressure tightening behind his ribs. Gran Torino's cane tapped Izuku's forearm. Breathe, he snapped. Izuku forced a slow exhale. Steam hissed faintly from his vents. The anger cooled to something manageable. Gran Torino nodded. Good, he muttered. Because if you meet him. Gran Torino's eyes hardened. He will try to cut your ideals out of you. 5. The call. Ida's breaking point. Izuku found out what Gran Torino meant that evening. It happened fast. One moment he was running patrol routes with Gran Torino, checking corners. Watching rooftops. The next moment, his phone buzzed. A message. Not from his mom. Not from All Might. From a classmate. Todoroki, Midoriya. Iida is in Hosu. He left without telling us. He's looking for someone. Izuku's blood went cold. He remembered Ida's brother, Ingenium, injured by Stain. He remembered Ida's stiff posture at school, the way his hands shook when he pretended they didn't. Izuku's chest tightened. The furnace warmed. Threat. Danger. Protect Pack. Izuku's fingers trembled. He looked up at Gran Torino. Gran Torino had already noticed the shift in Izuku's breathing. What? Gran Torino barked. Izuku swallowed. My classmate is here. Iida. He's going after Stain. Gran Torino's eyes widened, then turned furious. That idiot, Gran Torino snapped. Izuku's throat tightened. We have to. Gran Torino grabbed Izuku by the collar again, dragging Izuku could smell the old man's minty breath. You don't have to do anything, Gran Torino snarled. You are not licensed. You are a child. Izuku flinched, but his voice shook with urgency. If I don't go, Izuku said, Iida could die. Gran Torino stared at him. For a moment, Izuku though. UGHT Gran Torino would knock him out to stop him. Then Gran Torino's grip loosened slightly. His eyes narrowed, calculating. Fine, Gran Torino said. But you don't chase revenge. You chase rescue. Izuku nodded so hard his neck hurt. Gran Torino jabbed him in the chest with his cane. And you don't show off, Gran Torino added. If you lose control in a populated city, you won't just be a victim. Izuku swallowed. I know, he whispered. Gran Torino's eyes were sharp. Prove it, he snapped. Then he launched off the rooftop with his quirk, moving like a bullet. Izuku followed, legs surging with a controlled burst of one for all. The storm hummed, the furnace warmed, and somewhere deep inside, a primal part of Izuku whispered eagerly. Hunt. Izuku clenched his teeth. No, he muttered. He wasn't going to hunt. He was going to save someone. Even if the dragon screamed otherwise. 6. Alleyway. Where ideals go to bleed. They found Iida by scent first. That sounded insane, but it was true. Izuku's furnace sharpened his senses when adrenaline spiked, and he caught it, blood, sweat, and something metallic in the air that wasn't just city pollution. Izuku's skin prickled. Gran Torino saw Izuku's reaction and snapped, there. They turned the corner into an alley. And Izuku's stomach dropped. Iida was on the ground, pinned, trembling. A man stood over him with a posture like a blade. Spiky hair, red eyes, scarred face, and a smile that didn't belong on a human. Stain. He held a knife in one hand. The other hand was stained dark with blood. Todoroki was there too, breathing hard, ice creeping across the alley walls like a protective instinct. Stain's gaze flicked to Izuku. And Izuku felt it. That moment when a predator sees a new animal enter its territory and decides whether it's prey or competition. Stain's lips curled. So, Stain rasped, voice rough like gravel. The dragon arrives. Izuku's throat tightened. The furnace warmed instantly, offended by the tone. Gran Torino moved before Izuku could reply, fast. Brutal, slamming into Stain's side with a kick that cracked concrete. Stain skidded back, laughing. Old man Torino, Stain hissed. Still crawling out of retirement to play hero. Gran Torino snarled. Shut up. Stain's eyes flicked back to Izuku. I can smell it on you, Stain said softly. Power. Tremendous power. Izuku swallowed. Stain smiled wider. And fear, Stain added. Fear of what you really are. Izuku's fingers curled. The furnace tightened. Steam hissed faintly from his vent braces without him intending it. Todoroki glanced at him sharply. Gran Torino barked, focus. Izuku forced a breath. The hiss stopped. Stain's eyes gleamed. You don't deny it, Stain murmured. Interesting. Izuku stepped forward, voice shaking but clear. We're not here to fight you, Izuku said. Stain laughed. Oh. Stain tilted his head. Then why come? Izuku's gaze flicked to Iida, injured, furious, shame burning in his eyes. We're here, Izuku said, to stop you from killing anyone else. Stain's smile faltered slightly, like he found that answer boring. Then his eyes sharpened, dangerous. Heroes, Stain hissed, or rotten. Todoroki's voice cut in, calm but cold. Then why kill them? Todoroki asked. Stain's gaze flared. Because someone has to cleanse society, he snapped. Because false heroes, people who do it for fame, money, ego, poison the meaning of heroism. Izuku's chest tightened. Stain's eyes bored into him. And you, Stain murmured, are the most dangerous kind. Izuku blinked. Stain stepped closer, knife low, posture relaxed like he was already certain of victory. A child, Stain whispered, with too much power. He smiled, teeth sharp. A monster, Stain said, voice almost gentle, wearing a hero's costume. Izuku's stomach twisted. The furnace surged. The whisper returned like a knife sliding into his thoughts. He called you monster. Prove him wrong. Prove him wrong by ending him. Izuku's vision narrowed. His teeth ached. Scales tried to surface across his neck and jaw. The feral threshold tugged at him like a hand. Todoroki's voice snapped through the haze. Midoriya. Izuku blinked hard. Gran Torino's cane tapped his knee sharply. Breathe. Gran Torino barked. Or I'll knock you out myself. Izuku sucked in air, slow, controlled. Exhaled through both vents. Steam hissed sideways. The scales stopped rising. Izuku's vision cleared. He looked at Stain again, heart pounding. I'm not a monster, Izuku said, voice hoarse. Stain tilted his head, amused. Then prove it, Stain whispered. 7. Combat. Precision over brutality. Stain moved like a shadow. Fast. Silent. Izuku barely had time to register the knife slash toward his throat. Before Gran Torino slammed into Stain again, knocking the blade away. Todoroki fired ice to limit Stain's movement, forcing him into narrow lanes. But Stain didn't panic. He adapted. He used walls. He used angles. He used the environment like it was part of his body. Izuku realized quickly. Stain wasn't strong the way Bakugo was strong. He was strong the way a killer was strong. Efficient. Unemotional. Every strike had purpose. Iida tried to stand again, rage forcing his body up. Stain. Iida roared. Stain glanced at him like he was bored. Then he flicked a knife. A single cut across Iida's arm. Blood. And Iida's body froze. Izuku's eyes widened. Paralysis. Stain licked blood off the blade, eyes gleaming. Your blood type, Stain whispered, is easy. Iida's eyes burned with helpless fury. Izuku's chest surged with anger. The furnace flared. Burn him. Izuku forced himself to breathe. Because brute force would get someone killed. Stain was too fast to be chased blindly. He needed to be contained. Izuku darted forward with one for all, low percent, legs only, to close distance. Stain pivoted instantly. Blade flashing for Izuku's wrist. Izuku dumped pressure through his vent braces at the exact moment he moved. A sharp steam burst shot sideways, not toward Stain's face, toward the wall behind him. The steam clouded the alley corner, obscuring Stain's vision for half a second. Half a second was everything. Izuku used it to slide in close and slam his elbow into Stain's forearm. Not enough to shatter bone. Enough to numb fingers. The knife clattered. Stain smiled anyway, eyes bright with approval. Restraint, he murmured, almost pleased. Good. Then Stain headbutted Izuku. Izuku stumbled backward, stars exploding behind his eyes. The furnace surged in response to pain. Scales rippled under his sleeves. His jaw tightened. His teeth ached. Bite. Izuku clenched his fist so hard his nails cut skin. Pain anchored him. He jumped backward, creating space. Todoroki slammed fire across the alley floor, forcing Stain back. But Stain leapt through the heat like it was nothing, coat singeing. Gran Torino intercepted again. Izuku's brain raced. Stain's weakness wasn't strength. It wasn't defense. It was positioning. He couldn't be everywhere at once. So Izuku changed the battlefield. He inhaled, not a roar, not a blast. A controlled pressure build. Then he exhaled downward, just like he did at the entrance exam. But smaller. More precise. A tight shockwave burst into the pavement. Concrete cracked in a narrow line, like a trench forming. Stain stepped wrong for a fraction of a second, foot catching on broken ground. Gran Torino took that opening and slammed Stain into the wall. Todoroki pinned Stain's legs with ice. Stain strained, laughing even as his movement WFUL teamwork, Stain rasped. Real hero work. Izuku's throat burned. The furnace hummed, irritated that Stain sounded impressed. Stain turned his gaze on Izuku again, pinned but still terrifying. You're choosing restraint, Stain said softly. Izuku swallowed. Good, Stain whispered. Because if you weren't. His smile widened. I would have killed you already. Ate the moment Stain tried to break him. Stain moved even while pinned. His arm flexed, muscles like cables. He scrapped. Ed his hand against a shard of concrete until blood welled. Then he flicked it. A tiny spray, aiming for Izuku's face. Izuku jerked back instinctively. A few droplets hit his cheek. Warm. Metallic. Izuku froze. Stain's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Blood, Stain whispered. Izuku's muscles locked. And he realized, with sudden dread. Stain's quirk worked on anyone. Including him. Izuku's body went rigid, breath stuck halfway. The furnace surged in panic. Heat spiked violently behind his ribs with nowhere to go. Izuku's vision narrowed. The dragon inside him screamed. Move, kill, survive. His skin prickled as scales tried to erupt instantly, armor forcing itself outward under paralysis. It hurt. It hurt. Pressure built in his lungs like a bomb. Izuku couldn't vent. He couldn't move. He LD only feel the feral threshold rising fast. Like his body wanted to tear itself free of Stain's control by becoming something else. A monster shape was easier than a human shape. Todoroki shouted something, distant. Gran Torino cursed. Stain leaned in, close enough that Izuku could smell him. Sweat and blood and conviction. See, Stain murmured. Under pressure, you become what you truly are. Izuku's eyes widened. He couldn't answer. His throat burned. Stain smiled, almost kind. A monster, Stain whispered. Izuku's chest convulsed. Pressure surged. And a sound rumbled in his bones. Not a full roar. A vibration. A near break. Then, through the haze, another voice cut in. Not All Might. Not Gran Torino. Not Todoroki. A desperate voice, cracked with emotion. Izuku. Uraraka. She wasn't supposed to be here. But her voice hit Izuku like a rope thrown into a storm. Izuku. Not Midoriya. Not Dragon Boy. His name. Human. Real. Izuku's eyes stung. The furnace hesitated. The dragon's scream faltered. Because the dragon didn't understand names. It understood territory. Threat. Survival. But Izuku understood names. He understood people. He clung to the sound of it like a lifeline. I am Midoriya Izuku. He forced his mind to focus. Even while his body was locked. I saved people. The pressure in his lungs trembled. And instead of exploding outward, it leaked. A faint hiss escaped his vent braces automatically. Emergency release. Steam puffed sideways. Not enough to attack. Enough to reduce pressure. Enough to keep the furnace from detonating. Stain's eyes widened slightly. Interesting, Stain murmured. Izuku's paralysis began to fade. Seconds passing, quirk effect timing out. His muscles unlocked one by one. He dropped to one knee, gasping. And when he looked up, Stain was watching him with something almost like respect. You didn't give in, Stain said quietly. Izuku's throat burned. I won't, Izuku rasped. Stain's smile was sharp. We'll see, he whispered. Ninth, the finish. Mercy, that hurts. The moment Izuku recovered movement, the battle shifted. Todoroki's ice tightened. Gran Torino struck Stain's pressure points, limiting motion. Izuku moved in, low one for all through legs, closing distance. He could have punched Stain's jaw with full power. He could have ended it brutally. The furnace begged for it. End threat. Ensure safety. Finality. Izuku clenched his teeth. Instead, Izuku aimed for Stain's shoulder. He punched, not full smash, just enough to dislocate and immobilize. Stain grunted, but he still smiled like the pain was proof of something. Then heroes arrived, sirens, uniforms, pro-reinforcements. Stain tried to move one last time. Todoroki blasted fire at the ground near him, not at his body, forcing him still. Izuku stood panting, throat raw, vents hissing faintly as he kept the furnace stable. Stain looked up at him from the ice and rubble. Blood on his teeth, eyes bright with conviction. You fought like a hero, Stain whispered. Izuku swallowed. Stain's gaze sharpened. But your power, he murmured, is monstrous. Izuku's chest tightened. Stain smiled. So the question remains, Stain said softly. When the world fears you, will you still choose to save it? Izuku stared at him, trembling. I will, Izuku said, voice hoarse. Stain's eyes narrowed. Then he laughed, low and rough. Good, Stain whispered. Then, as heroes dragged him away, Stain turned. His head just enough to say one last thing, quiet, for Izuku alone. A monster, Stain murmured, who chooses mercy. He smiled faintly. Is rarer than a hero. And then he was gone. 10. Aftermath, the taste of that word. Later, when the city calmed, and the adrenaline faded, Izuku sat on a rooftop with Gran Torino. His throat was bandaged. His wrists ached. His chest still hummed with leftover heat. Gran Torino stared at him. Expression unreadable. You did okay, Gran Torino said finally. Izuku blinked. Just okay. Gran Torino smacked him in the head with the cane again. You want praise? Go win a popularity contest. Gran Torino snapped. Izuku rubbed his head, but he couldn't stop the shaky laugh. Then his smile faded. He called me a monster, Izuku admitted quietly. Gran Torino grunted. He calls everyone something. Izuku stared at his hands. But it felt like he meant it, Izuku whispered. Gran Torino's eyes narrowed. Maybe he did, Gran Torino said. Izuku's chest tightened. Gran Torino leaned closer. Voice firm. But you know what matters? Gran Torino asked. Izuku swallowed. What? Gran Torino tapped Izuku's chest with the cane. That you heard it, Gran Torino said, and you didn't become it. Izuku stared. Gran Torino's gaze was sharp. The world will keep trying to name you, Gran Torino said. Weapon. Monster. Symbol. Threat. Izuku's throat tightened. Gran Torino's voice softened, just barely. So pick your own name, Gran Torino said. And live like it. Izuku inhaled slowly. In his chest, the furnace hummed, not angry, not pleased, just present. Izuku whispered to himself, like an oath. I am Midoriya Izuku. Then, quieter. I saved people. And for the first time since the sports festival. The dragon inside him didn't whisper back. It just listened. The forest smelled like pine, dirt, and rain. It smelled alive. That should have been calming. Instead, it made Izuku's skin prickle. Because the dragon core loved the smell of living things. Loved the density of it. The way the air carried information, sweat, fear, excitement, blood. The training camp wasn't just a field trip. It was territory. And territories made instincts wake up. Izuku stood WITH Class 1A at the edge of the woods while Aizawa spoke with the same enthusiasm he used for funerals. This week will be hell, Aizawa said. If you can't keep up, you don't belong in the hero course. Kaminari groaned. Mina cracked her knuckles. Kirishima grinned. Izuku swallowed and forced his shoulders down. Control. Choose. Be safe. He could do this. He thought he was ready. He didn't know why. At that the forest didn't care what he thought. 1. A new type of training, make it yours. The first day was endurance and quirk development. No villains. No flashy fights. Just constant pressure. Zawa paired them with pro heroes to improve weaknesses. Izuku's mentor was, terrifyingly appropriate. A hero named Snipe watched Izuku vent steam through his braces and then sighed like a man witnessing a future catastrophe. Kid, Snipe said, tipping his cowboy hat, your problem ain't power. Izuku blinked. It's not Izuku's chest. Your problem's that you got 2 engines in there, Snipe said. And neither one likes braking. Izuku swallowed. Snipe tossed him a canteen. Hydrate. Your furnace runs dry, you'll cook your own throat. Izuku drank obediently. Then Snipe handed him a target board and pointed at a clearing. Show me your breath, Snipe said. Izuku stiffened. I don't like using it in open areas. Snipe raised a hand. Not asking you to burn down the forest, he said. I'm asking you to aim. Izuku's throat tightened. He stepped into the clearing. He inhaled slowly, feeling pressure gather behind his ribs. His vents warmed. He focused on the target board. He didn't want to roar. Roars were wide, hard to control. He needed something thinner, more deliberate. Snipe watched. Now, Snipe said, exhale like you're blowing out a candle. Izuku exhaled. A narrow stream of superheated breath shot forward, more steam than flame, and punched a hole through the center ring of the board. Izuku stared, stunned. Snipe whistled low. That's precision, he muttered. Now do it again. Smaller. Izuku swallowed. He did it again, narrower. Then again. By the 10th attempt, his throat burned and his chest ached, but the stream was controlled, consistent. Snipe nodded, impressed despite himself. Good, he said. Now the important part. Izuku blinked. There's more. Snipe leaned in. When you get scared, Snipe said quietly, you'll want to go big. Roar. Smash. End it. Izuku's fingers curled. Snipe's gaze was sharp. So you gotta build a habit that beats fear, he said. You do that by making the safe option your first instinct. Izuku swallowed. Snipe pointed at Izuku's vent braces. Those are your emergency exits, Snipe said. But I don't want emergency. I want routine. Izuku nodded slowly. Snipe smiled faintly. Welcome to adult hero work, he said. It's mostly boring choices that save lives. Izuku exhaled. The furnace grumbled, but it listened. Night, the forest makes you honest. That night, Class 1A gathered in the lodge, exhausted. The air was warm. The lights were soft. People laughed. Izuku tried to relax, but he could feel the forest outside. Dark, dense, watchful. Tokiyami sat near the window, dark shadow calm in the dim. Todoroki sat quietly, eyes distant. Bakugo paced like a caged animal, irritated by the idea of camp being anything but combat. Uraraka sat near Izuku, smiling gently. You've been doing great, she said. Izuku blinked. Huh. Uraraka leaned closer. You always look like you're about to explode, she said softly, but you don't. Izuku let out a weak laugh. That's kind of my whole thing now. Uraraka smiled, then her expression softened. You don't scare me, she said. Izuku's chest tightened. The furnace warmed, quiet, emotional. Uraraka nudged his shoulder lightly. Just don't try to do everything alone, she whispered. Izuku nodded, throat tight. Before he could reply, Aizawa entered. Lights out, Aizawa said flatly. Everyone groaned, but obeyed. As Izuku lay on his futon, staring into the dark, he heard the forest settle into night sounds. Crickets, wind, leaves whispering, And somewhere deep inside his chest, the dragon core stirred, not angry, not excited, just alert, like something was pacing in the dark of his ribs, listening for danger. Izuku swallowed. Please let me have one normal night, he thought. The universe, of course, didn't care. 3. The attack. When the sky tears open. It began with a scream. Not a student scream. A pro-hero scream. Izuku's eyes snapped open. His body was already moving before his mind caught up. The furnace surged awake instantly, heat rising like a flare. Threat. The lodge doors exploded inward. Villains flooded in. Masks. Weapons. Quirks flashing. And then, a voice, calm and cruel, cut through the chaos like a knife. Find the boy, the voice said. The one with one for all. Izuku's blood turned to ice. The League of Villains. Here. Now. They weren't here for fun. They were here for him. Aizawa moved, eyes glowing red. Stay back, he ordered. But students were already scrambling. Terrified. Bakugo lunged forward like he'd been waiting for this moment. Come on. Bakugo roared. I'll kill you. Izuku flinched at the word. Kill. The dragon core loved that word. Izuku forced himself to breathe. Then a blast hit the lodge, gas, smoke, confusion. A villain with a toothy grin, mustard, laughed, filling the air with poison. Students coughed, choking. Izuku's lungs burned, not from the gas, from the furnace trying to respond. Burn it. Cleanse it. Fire solves air. Izuku swallowed hard. If he breathed fire in this enclosed space, he'd roast his classmates. He couldn't. He forced a controlled exhale through his vents instead, steam hissing sideways, stabilizing his chest. Then he grabbed his shirt collar and pulled it over his mouth, eyes watering. Uraraka, he shouted, voice muffled. This way. He tried to guide people out, small, controlled movements. But the villains were everywhere. Aizawa fought like a demon, scarf snapping, erasing quirks, dropping attackers. Izuku's heart hammered. He could feel the feral threshold tugging at him, not full takeover, but the instinct to go big, to end threats fast. Then he heard a crash outside. And a laugh, high, manic. I found you, a voice chirped. Izuku's head snapped toward the sound. His stomach dropped. A blue-haired girl, Toga, stood in the doorway, smiling with too many teeth. Izuku Midoriya, she sang. You smell amazing. Izuku flinched. Not because she said his name. Because she was right. The furnace made him smell like heat and power. Toga licked her lips. I wanna see you bleed, she whispered. Izuku's chest tightened. The dragon core surged. Threat. Predator. End it. Izuku's fingertips tingled, scales ready to surface. He forced a breath. Toga lunged. Izuku sidestepped, grabbed her wrist. And twisted, not breaking, just redirecting. He shoved her backward into a wall and sprinted past her, not staying to fight. Because the priority wasn't winning. It was escaping. It was keeping people alive. He ran into the forest. And the night swallowed him whole. The forest, where the feral threshold lives. The woods were chaos. Students scattered. Villains chased. Explosions lit up trees like lightning. Izuku sprinted, breath steaming in the cold night air. The furnace burned steady, building pressure. His senses sharpened too much. He could hear footsteps behind him. He could smell sweat and blood. He could smell fear, his own, mixed with others. He stopped abruptly, crouching behind a tree. He listened. A twig snapped. Izuku's eyes narrowed. His body wanted to move before thought. Hunt. Strike first. Izuku clenched his jaw. No, he wasn't hunting. He was surviving. He moved silently, too silently, and he realized with a chill. The dragon core made him good at moving like a predator. That thought made him sick. A figure stumbled into a clearing ahead, Kota, the small boy who hated heroes. He was crying, face smeared with dirt. Behind him, a villain stepped out of the shadows. Muscular. Masked. Covered in scars. Muscular. Izuku's stomach dropped. He'd seen him on the news. A villain who crushed heroes like toys. Kota backed away, terrified. Muscular laughed. Found a kid. Muscular said, voice like broken glass. Easy prey. Izuku's blood went cold. Kota was a civilian child. This wasn't a test. This was real. And in that moment, Izuku felt the feral threshold slam into him like a wave. The dragon core flared so violently it hurt. Scales erupted up his forearms, visible in the moonlight. His teeth ached. His back burned at those press. Your points like something wanted to tear out. And the whisper in his head wasn't subtle anymore. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command. Destroy him. Izuku stepped into T turned, grinning. Well, Muscular rumbled. Another kid hero. Quote. Izuku's voice came out low. Wrong, too deep, too rough. Leave him alone. Muscular laughed harder. What are you gonna do, kid? Roar at me. Izuku's chest tightened. He could feel one for all surge in response to danger, storm power rising. And the furnace answered with heat, pressure, the desire to become something bigger than human. Kota stared at Izuku, eyes wide. Why you? Kota whispered. You're a hero. Izuku's throat burned. I'm trying, Izuku said. Muscular cracked his neck. Cute, Muscular said. I'll crush you anyway. He lunged. Fast. Too fast for his size. Izuku activated one for all through his legs and dodged, barely. Muscular's fist smashed into a tree, exploding bark. Izuku's heart hammered. If Muscular hit him cleanly, it was over. Izuku tried a controlled breath stream, narrow, precise, aimed at Muscular's face. Steam blasted forward. Muscular barely blinked. The steam hit his skin and dispersed like fog against a mountain. Muscular grinned. That tickle. He laughed. Izuku's stomach sank. Precision wouldn't stop him. Restraint wouldn't stop him. Muscular wasn't a villain you could gently disable. He was a wall of meat and violence. And Kota was right there. Izuku felt the feral threshold rise higher. His vision narrowed. His hearing sharpened. His heartbeat sounded like a drum. Be bigger. Be stronger. End it. Muscular swung again. Izuku ducked. But the wind of the punch still slammed into him, throwing him backward. He hit the ground hard. Pain exploded across his ribs. Kota screamed. Muscular approached, smiling. You got guts, Muscular said. But guts don't save you. Izuku pushed up, trembling. His arms shook. His vents hissed involuntarily as pressure built. His skin prickled. Scales spread further across his neck, visible now. Muscular's grin widened. Now that's what I like, Muscular said. Show me the monster. Izuku's stomach twisted. Monster. That word again. Stain's word. Bakugo's fear. The crowd's fascination. And now a villain's delight. Izuku's throat burned. He wanted to say no. He wanted to deny it. But Muscular lunged again. And Izuku realized denial didn't matter. Kota would die. And that was the moment Izuku made a choice. Not to become a monster. But to use what he had. Even if it terrified everyone. 5. The feral threshold. When the dragon almost wins. Izuku inhaled. And let the storm surge. One for all roared through his muscles like lightning. The furnace answered like a volcano. Heat exploded behind his ribs. Pressure slammed into his lungs. His back burned. And something beneath his shoulder blades shifted, bones pressing, muscles stretching, membrane trying to exist. Izuku screamed, half pain, half effort. And his voice came out as a roar. Not just sound. A concussive shockwave. It blasted outward, cracking the ground in a circle. Muscular staggered, surprised for the first time. Trees shook. Leaves rained down. Kota covered his ears, crying out. Izuku stood, breathing hard. Scales covered his arms like armor now, reflecting moonlight. His eyes flashed gold for a heartbeat. His teeth were too sharp. Muscular wiped blood from his lip, laughing. That's it. Muscular roared. Now we're talking. He charged. Izuku met him head on. He punched. Hard. OFA surged through his arm. Muscular caught it. His fingers dug into Izuku's scaled forearm. Pain flared. Muscular grinned. Nice armor, he hissed. Let's see how it breaks. He twisted. Izuku's bones screamed. The furnace howled inside him. Bite. Burn. Tear. Izuku's jaw clenched so hard it shook. He felt his body wanting to drop to all fours. Wanting to use teeth. Wanting to stop thinking and just survive. He saw Kota behind Muscular, terrified, small. The dragon didn't care about Kota. The dragon cared about winning. That realization hit Izuku like ice water. If he surrendered to the dragon fully, he might save Kota. Or he might burn the entire clearing down with both of them in it. He might become exactly what everyone feared. Muscular punched him in the gut. Izuku coughed, stumbling. The feral threshold surged higher. His vision tunneled. Everything smelled like prey and threat. Muscular laughed. "You're slipping." Muscular taunted. "Come on. Let it out." Izuku's chest convulsed. Pressure built. Fire wanted to happen. His vents hissed uselessly. It wasn't enough anymore. The furnace was too full. He was too cornered. The dragon inside him screamed. True form. Izuku's back burned so hard he thought he'd tear in half. He felt membrane trying to rip through skin. He felt bones trying to shift. And in that split second, Izuku understood. This was it. The line. The moment where he either stayed human or became something else. And then, a small hand grabbed his shirt. Kota. Trembling, crying, furious. "Stop." Kota screamed at Izuku, voice cracking. "Stop trying to be like them." Izuku blinked, stunned. Kota's eyes burned with pain and anger. "Heroes always," Kota sobbed. They always get hurt, and people die." Izuku's throat tightened. Kota shook him. But you're still here," Kota whispered. "So, don't die." Izuku's chest clenched. The dragon core hesitated. Not because it cared about Kota's feelings. Because something human in Izuku latched onto the words like an anchor. Don't die. Not in the sense of survival. In the sense of, don't lose yourself. Izuku inhaled, shaking. He forced his mind to focus on one thing. One sentence. One identity. I am Midoriya Izuku. He felt the storm in his muscles. He felt the furnace in his ribs. He felt the dragon clawing at the door. And he whispered, voice raw, I saved people. Then he acted. Not with rage. Not with teeth. With a plan. 6. The solution. Precision plus sacrifice. Izuku knew Muscular could tank most attacks. But Muscular had one weakness. He still needed to breathe. He still needed balance. He still needed joints. Izuku forced his heat downward, venting into the ground, not outward. Steam hissed violently from his braces, dumping pressure sideways. He used the release to stabilize his core, barely. Then he activated One for All in a focused way, through his fingers, his wrist. Not a smash, a snap. He struck Muscular's knee joint with a sharp, controlled blow. Muscular stumbled. Izuku followed instantly, low percent OFA through legs, circling. He hit the other knee. Muscular roared, staggering. Izuku's throat burned. His arms shook. His scales began cracking at the edges from stress. Muscular swung wildly, furious. Izuku ducked, rolled, and then he did the thing All Might trained him to fear. He used a higher percentage of One for All, through one finger. A single focused blast. Not to kill, to disable. He flicked his finger forward. And the shockwave slammed into Muscular's torso like a battering ram. Muscular flew backward, smashing into trees. The forest shook. Muscular coughed, stunned. Izuku stood panting, finger bleeding, pain ripping up his arm. But Muscular was down, dazed, slowed. Izuku staggered forward, trembling. He could finish it. The dragon begged for it. End it. Ensure safety. Burn him. Izuku clenched his jaw. No, he whispered. He grabbed Kota and sprinted away instead, dragging him out of the clearing. Toward the lodge lights in the distance. Muscular's roar echoed behind them. I'll kill you. Izuku's lungs burned. His throat tore. His scales began receding, shud. Daring under his skin like they didn't want to leave. Kota clung to him, sobbing. Izuku kept running. Not because he'd won. Because he'd survived long enough to save someone. 7. Aftermath. The price of holding back. They reached a clearing where pro-heroes finally intercepted. Mandalie's voice echoed, villains scattered, chaos shifting. Muscular was captured later. But Izuku didn't see it. Because the moment he handed Kota to safety, his body storm in his muscles faded. The furnace sputtered. The scales collapsed under his skin. Izuku's knees buckled. He fell face first into dirt. His throat felt like it had been scraped raw. His arms screamed with pain. And inside his chest, something felt quiet. Not calm. Exhausted. Like the dragon had spent all its rage and didn't know what to do with emptiness. Gran Torino wasn't there to slap him. All Might wasn't there to steady him. Only Aizawa, appearing like a tired ghost, eyes narrowed. Aizawa crouched beside him. You're alive, Aizawa said flatly. Izuku wheezed. Yeah. Aizawa's gaze flicked over Izuku's arms, the faint marks where scales had been. You almost crossed it, Aizawa murmured. Izuku swallowed, throat burning. I know. Aizawa stared at him, expression unreadable. Then he said, quietly. But you didn't. Izuku's eyes stung. Aizawa stood. Get up, he ordered. You're not done. Izuku's body screamed at the command. He forced himself to push onto his elbows. Aizawa looked down at him like he was weighing him. Listen carefully, Aizawa said. Izuku blinked up at him. That thing in you, Aizawa said, voice low, is going to keep offering you easy solutions. Brutal ones. Izuku nodded shakily. Aizawa's eyes hardened. And one day, Aizawa said, you're going to be so tired, so scared, so angry. He paused. That the easy solution will feel like the only one. Izuku's throat tightened. Aizawa leaned closer. So decide now, Aizawa said, who you are when you're at your worst. Izuku's breath shuddered. He thought of Kota grabbing his shirt. He thought of his own whisper, I save people. He thought of the dragon screaming for true form. Izuku swallowed hard. I'm a hero, Izuku rasped. Aizawa stared. Then he nodded once. Prove it every day, Aizawa said. Then he walked away. Izuku lay in the dirt, trembling. The forest above him swayed quietly. And deep inside his ribs, the furnace hummed faintly. Not satisfied, not angry, just waiting. Because the dragon had learned something tonight. It could almost win. And Izuku had learned something worse. One day, almost, might not be enough. After the training camp, Yue felt different. Not quieter, not safer, just thinner. Like the line between student and victim had worn down to a thread. Class 1A came back bruised and shaken. Some tried to joke, some tried to act normal. Izuku tried too, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw Muscular's grin. He felt his back burning, the almost wings. He heard the roar that had almost become something else. And the worst part, he wasn't just afraid of villains anymore. He was afraid of a moment when he might decide that being human was optional. Then Bakugo got taken, and everything snapped into motion. After camp, suspicion and silence. The dorms were supposed to make things safer. Security cameras, gates, hero patrols, a fortress for teenagers. But fortresses couldn't stop fear from living inside your chest. Izuku sat at his desk in the dorm common area, staring at nothing. His notebook lay open, but he wasn't writing. Uraraka approached quietly and set a cup of tea near him. You've been spacing out a lot, she said softly. Izuku blinked. Sorry. Uraraka frowned. Don't apologize. Just talk. Izuku swallowed. How do you tell someone that you almost turned into a creature in the forest? How do you tell someone that part of you wanted it? I'm fine, he lied, automatically. Uraraka stared at him. Then she sighed, gently annoyed. You're the worst liar, she said. Izuku's shoulders sagged. Before he could answer, Iida approached, face stiff as stone. We're holding a class meeting, Iida announced. Immediately, the common room quieted. Everyone gathered. Iida stood at the front, hands trembling slightly. It is clear, Iida said, voice strained, that villains targeted us specifically. That means someone is leaking information. The room went cold. Kirishima blinked. A traitor. Mina's face paled. Izuku's stomach twisted. A traitor meant paranoia. Paranoia meant fear. Fear meant. The furnace warmed faintly, responding to the tension. Izuku exhaled slowly. Iida continued, voice rigid. We must be careful what we say. Who we trust. What we share. Izuku looked around at his classmates, faces he'd fought beside, laughed beside, almost died beside. The idea that one of them might be feeding villains information felt wrong. But the world had been wrong a lot lately. Uraraka glanced at Izuku, eyes worried. Izuku offered a small smile he didn't feel. Control, he reminded himself. Don't let fear make you smaller, or bigger. Then a news alert blared from someone's phone. And everything got worse. The kidnapping. When the pact gets broken. The footage was shaky. A dark alley lit by street lamps. Villains. A portal. Bakugo screaming, explosions flashing. And then he was gone. The room erupted instantly. No, Kirishima whispered, horrified. Uraraka covered her mouth. Kaminari went pale. Izuku's chest went ice cold. Bakugo, taken. Not injured. Not attacked. Taken. Like a prize. Like bait. The furnace in Izuku's chest surged awake like a beast hearing its pack mate cry out. Heat rose fast, too fast. His skin prickled. Scales threatened to surface along his knuckles. Izuku clenched his fists under the table, nails digging into skin. Breathe, breathe. Iida slammed his hands onto the table. We must inform the teachers and trust the pros. He barked. Kirishima's voice shook. They'll kill him. Iida's glasses flashed. We are students. If we interfere. Izuku's throat tightened. Bakugo was an asshole. Bakugo was cruel. Bakugo was still his. Not property. Not prey. Not a villain's trophy. Izuku's breath came out hot. The vent braces hiss. Ed faintly as he dumped pressure without thinking. Everyone stared. Izuku froze. Aizawa stood in the doorway, eyes tired, scarf loose. He'd heard. He always heard. Aizawa looked at them for a long moment. Then he spoke. Voice flat but heavy. Bakugo is being handled by pros. You will not interfere. Kirishima's fist shook. But, Aizawa's gaze sharpened. If you go, Aizawa said, you will die. Or you will get someone else killed. Silence. Aizawa's eyes flicked to Izuku, just a fraction longer than anyone else. And Izuku knew what Aizawa really meant. Or you will lose control. Aizawa exhaled, weary. Go to your rooms, he ordered. They dispersed slowly, like broken pieces. Izuku walked back to his room, chest tight, furnace hot. And the dragon inside him whispered with clarity that made him sick. Hunt them. 3. The decision, hero, or student. That night, Izuku sat on his bed staring at the wall. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat. He couldn't stop imagining Bakugo alone in a villain hideout, rage burning him alive. A knock came at the door. Izuku opened it to find Kirishima. Kirishima's eyes were red. I can't just sit here, Kirishima said. Izuku's chest tightened. Another figure approached, Todoroki. Then Iida. Then Yaoyorozu. Then Uraraka, quiet, eyes worried, but determined. Izuku's throat went dry. They stood in the hallway like a silent agreement. Kirishima spoke first, voice shaking. We're going, he said. Iida flinched, battling himself. This is, against orders. Todoroki's gaze was steady. Bakugo is our classmate. Yaoyorozu swallowed hard. I can make equipment for a rescue. Uraraka looked at Izuku. Her voice was soft. We're scared too. Izuku's chest burned. The furnace hummed, eager. Yes. Pack. Hunt. Izuku swallowed. If they went, it would be dangerous. If they stayed, Bakugo might die. And Izuku knew himself well enough to understand something terrible. If Bakugo died because Izuku stayed obedient, the dragon in Izuku would never forgive him. It would use that grief like fuel forever. Izuku took a shaky breath, spurred. Iida's eyes widened. Midoriya. Izuku looked at him, voice rough. Iida, Izuku said, you know what it feels like to want to act when someone you love is hurt. Iida's jaw trembled. Izuku continued softly. We're not going to fight, Izuku said. We're going to rescue. Todoroki nodded once. Agreed. Kirishima's fists clenched. Rescue. Yaoyorozu inhaled, steadying herself. I'll make tracking devices. Uraraka nodded. And we keep civilians safe. Izuku's throat burned. The dragon in his chest purred. But Izuku made another choice too. We do this quietly, Izuku said. No roaring. No big moves. No. He swallowed. No letting the monster drive. Everyone looked at him. Uraraka's gaze softened. Todoroki's eyes narrowed slightly. Like he understood more than he said. Kirishima nodded hard. Yeah, Kirishima said. We do it smart. Izuku exhaled slowly. The furnace settled, impatient, but contained. They moved. Fort Camino, where the air smells like endings. The hideout was in Camino Ward. An old warehouse area. Dark streets. Broken windows. The kind of place where the city's light didn't reach. They moved rooftop to rooftop. Quiet as they could manage. Yaoyorozu's tracker pinged. Bakugo's location confirmed. Izuku's heart hammered. The closer they got, the more his furnace warmed. It didn't like being near villains. It wanted to flare. It wanted to announce itself. To say, Predator is here. Izuku forced slow breaths. Vent braces hissed softly in tiny releases. They reached the warehouse. They crouched on a rooftop, peering down. Villains moved inside, silhouettes in broken light. Shigaraki. Kurogiri. Dabi. Toga. Twice. And Bakugo, restrained, furious, alive. Relief slammed into Izuku so hard he almost cried. Kirishima's jaw clenched. Todoroki's eyes sharpened. Yaoyorozu whispered, "Plan, now." They moved. Quick, precise. Yaoyorozu created a small cloth bundle. Kirishima would grab Bakugo. Todoroki would cover with ice. Uraraka would float their escape. Izuku would be the emergency. The last resort. The storm and furnace, held back until there was no other choice. Izuku hated being the last resort. But he accepted it. They dropped down. Kirishima called out, voice loud enough to be heard but not a scream. "Bakugo." Bakugo's head snapped up. His eyes widened in disbelief, then fury. "You idiots." Bakugo hissed. "What are you doing here?" Kirishima didn't answer. He sprinted. Todoroki launched a wall of ice to block villain's line of sight. Shigaraki reacted instantly, decay hand twitching. Kurogiri's mist swirled. Chaos erupted. Uraraka activated her quirk, floating their escape route. Yaoyorozu threw the cloth bundle, an item designed to jam Kurogiri's portal forming. It worked, for a moment. Kirishima grabbed Bakugo. Bakugo struggled, snarling, "Let go." Kirishima gritted his teeth. "Shut up." They pulled Bakugo toward the alley. And then Dabi's flames surged, cutting them off. Heat washed over Izuku. The furnace responded like a bell being struck. Pressure climbed fast. Steam hissed involuntarily from his vents. Izuku's eyes narrowed. The dragon whispered, "Fire. Rival. Burn hotter." Izuku swallowed hard. Not now. Not here. Not with civilians nearby. Then Shigaraki moved. His hand reached for Bakugo. Izuku's heart stopped. Because if Shigaraki touched Bakugo. Decay. Done. Izuku reacted without thinking. One for all surged through his legs. He launched forward like a bullet. He didn't roar. He didn't breathe fire. He slammed his shoulder into Shigaraki, knocking him back. And his forearm scales flashed briefly, armor surfacing on instinct. Shigaraki hissed, stumbling. Bakugo stared at Izuku, shocked. Izuku's chest burned. His throat tightened. The feral threshold stirred, close. Kurogiri's portal swirled again, regaining. Todoroki's ice cracked under flame. Dabi laughed. "Cute," Dabi drawled. "The kids came to play hero." Izuku's fists trembled. The furnace wanted to answer with a roar. A big one. A terrifying one. A kaiju in the city one. Izuku forced his breath slow. They were so close. Just a little farther. Just. Then something massive landed. A shockwave slammed the street. Dust exploded. And the air shifted like the world held its breath. All Might. He arrived like a sunrise in a nightmare. Shigaraki laughed, delighted. "There you are." All Might's eyes flicked to Bakugo. Then to Izuku. For half a second, Izuku saw the fear in All Might's gaze. Not fear of the villains. Fear of the furnace in Izuku's chest. Fear of what Izuku might do if this went wrong. Izuku swallowed hard. All Might's voice boomed. "Step away from them." The battle began. 5 All Might versus All for One, the storm in the furnace. All for One arrived like a shadow wearing human skin. His presence made Izuku's stomach twist. The furnace inside Izuku surged violently, like it recognized an apex predator. Heat rose fast. Pressure slammed into Izuku's lungs. The dragon didn't whisper. It growled. Because the dragon understood something Izuku didn't want to admit. All for One was the kind of threat that made restraint feel stupid. All for One spoke, voice calm, cruel. "Toshinori," he said, still playing cymbal. All Might's smile was huge. But Izuku could see it, the tremble. All Might was running out of time. The fight exploded across the street. Shockwaves. Quirk blasts. Concrete shattering. Civilians screaming and running. Heroes arriving, trying to evacuate. And in the middle of it, Izuku stood with his classmates and Bakugo behind cover, shaking. Because his body wanted to join. The storm of One for All reacted to the presence of its origin enemy like an alarm. The furnace reacted to danger like a wildfire. Izuku's skin prickled. Scales threatened to surface. His back burned at the wing points. The feral threshold crept upward. He could taste copper in his mouth from holding pressure too long. Uraraka grabbed his sleeve. "Izuku," she whispered urgently, eyes wide. "You're heating up." Izuku blinked, panting. "I know." Todoroki's gaze flicked to him. "Your core's destabilizing," Todoroki said, voice tight. "If you flare here." "I know," Izuku repeated, harsher. Bakugo snarled. Restrained by Kirishima. "Stop staring at him," Bakugo snapped. Watch the fight. Izuku flinched. All Might got hit, hard. He skidded across the street, coughing blood. The crowd screamed. Izuku's chest exploded with panic. The furnace surged. His vision narrowed. The dragon screamed inside him. True form. Now. Izuku's back burned so sharply he nearly screamed aloud. Muscle pulled. Bone pressure rose. He felt the almost wings again, desperate to exist. Izuku took a step forward. And Aizawa's voice cut through the chaos like a whip. Midoriya. Izuku froze. Aizawa stood nearby, eyes glowing red, erasing. Izuku felt it immediately. The dragon furnace dimmed sharply, like someone snuffed a candle. The scales stopped rising. The wing pressure eased. Izuku gasped, both relieved and furious. Aizawa's gaze was brutal. Do not, Aizawa snarled, turn this into your personal apocalypse. Izuku's throat tightened. All Might. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. All Might is fighting so you don't have to. Aizawa snapped. If you join and lose control, you'll kill civilians. Izuku trembled. Aizawa was right. He hated that Aizawa was right. All Might stumbled back to his feet. His smile returned, cracked but stubborn. He raised his fist. I am here. The crowd roared. All Might fought anyway. Even with time running out. Even with blood in his mouth. Even with the world watching. Izuku stood shaking, tears in his eyes, fists clenched. And he made the hardest choice of his life. He stayed back. He didn't roar. He didn't transform. He didn't become the dragon the crowd would fear. He just watched All Might carry the world. Sixth, the final punch. When the symbol falls. All wasn't just a punch. It was an ending. A storm compressed into a single moment. A promise in physical form. He roared, voice tearing the air. United States of Smash. The Udar hit like the sky falling. Wind exploded outward. Buildings shook. Smoke cleared. All for One was down. And All Might stood there, arm raised, smiling. For a moment, the whole world held its breath. Then All Might's hero form flickered. Collapsed. He shrank. Thin. Fragile. Human. A hush fell over the crowd like snow. Izuku's throat tightened. The furnace inside him dimmed, not from erasure, from grief. Because it understood what Izuku was feeling. The strongest protector in the world. Could still fall. All Might. Toshinori looked toward the camera. His face was tired, but his eyes were calm. And he raised a trembling hand and pointed into the crowd, toward the future. Toward someone else. Toward Izuku, even if no one knew it. Then he said the words that would echo forever. Now, it's your turn. Izuku's vision blurred. He didn't want it to be his turn. Not like this. Not with his storm and furnace still unstable. Not with the dragon inside him still hungry. Not with the world already looking at him like a weapon. But the turn had come anyway. 7. End of Chapter 7. The Dragon That Refused to Rise. That night, back in the dorms. Bakugo sat alone on the balcony. Izuku approached quietly. Bakugo didn't look at him. For once, Bakugo didn't yell. Izuku's throat tightened. Kak, Bakugo, Izuku corrected himself quickly. Bakugo's voice was low, rough. You came, Bakugo muttered. Izuku nodded. Yeah. Silence. Wind. Bakugo's hands were clenched so tight his knuckles were white. Why didn't you fight? Bakugo asked suddenly. Izuku froze. Bakugo finally looked at him. His eyes were sharp, furious, confused. I saw it, Bakugo hissed. I saw your scales. I saw you shaking. You wanted to tear them apart. Izuku swallowed. Bakugo's voice cracked with something Izuku didn't expect. Fear. Why didn't you? Bakugo demanded. Izuku stared at him, heart pounding. Because saying the truth out loud felt like stepping onto thin ice. But he did it. Because I was scared, Izuku admitted, voice rough. Scared I'd lose control. Bakugo's eyes narrowed. And Izuku's throat tightened. And I didn't want to hurt anyone, Izuku whispered. Bakugo stared at him for a long moment. Then his lip curled. TCH, Bakugo muttered, looking away. Idiot. Izuku's chest warmed faintly. Bakugo's insult felt different this time. Less cruel. More like a shield Bakugo didn't know how to put down. Bakugo's voice dropped. All Might's gone, Bakugo said. Izuku swallowed hard. Yeah, Izuku whispered. Bakugo's fists clenched again. And now it's your turn, Bakugo said, voice tight. Izuku's chest burned. The furnace hummed, quiet, heavy. Bakugo glanced at him one more time. If you become a monster, Bakugo hissed. Voice shaking with rage and fear, I'll kill you myself. Izuku flinched. Then he nodded. Okay, Izuku said softly. Bakugo blinked, thrown off. Izuku's voice was steady. Hold me to it, Izuku whispered. Bakugo stared at him like he didn't know what to do with that. Then Bakugo turned away, jaw clenched. TCH, he muttered again. Sleep. Izuku stood there a moment longer, then walked back inside. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, throat tight, eyes burning. All Might was gone. The symbol had fallen. And Izuku Midoriya, boy with a storm in his muscles and a dragon in his ribs, understood the new truth of his life. He wasn't just learning to be powerful. He was learning to be trusted. Even by the person who knew him best. Even by the part of himself that wanted to rise. And deep inside his chest, the dragon core stayed quiet. Not defeated. Not asleep. Just waiting. Because the next time the world demanded a monster, it might not be so easy to refuse. The provisional license exam wasn't like the sports festival. There were no cheers that tasted sweet. No spotlight that made the dragon purr. No crowd chanting, draw gone, like they were naming an animal. This time, the air felt cold. Clinical. Judgmental. Like the whole system had decided to measure not who you could be, but what you were most likely to become under pressure. And Izuku could feel it the moment he stepped onto the exam grounds. They weren't just testing strength. They were testing risk. And risk had a name that kept following him. Monster. Before the exam, the special note. Aizawa called Izuku to the staff office the day before the exam. He didn't call anyone else. Just Izuku. That alone made the furnace stir uneasily. Izuku sat across from Aizawa's desk, hands folded tight, vent braces hidden under his sleeves. Aizawa looked more tired than usual, like he'd been arguing with paperwork instead of villains. On the desk lay a sealed envelope, official, stamped, cold. Aizawa slid it across. Izuku swallowed. What is this? Aizawa's eyes didn't soften. It's a note from the licensing committee, he said. Izuku's stomach dropped. A note, about me. Aizawa stared. Yes. Izuku's fingers trembled as he opened it. The words were polite, professional, and brutal. Student Midoriya Izuku displays anomalous quirk behavior. Increased monitoring is recommended during the provisional license exam. Disqualify if signs of uncontrolled escalation appear. Izuku's vision blurred slightly. He forced himself to read it again. Monitoring. Disqualify. Uncontrolled escalation. Aizawa watched him carefully. Izuku's chest warmed. Anger. Humiliation. Fear. The furnace responded instantly, pressure tightening behind his ribs. Steam hissed faintly from his vents. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. Breathe, he said flatly. Izuku forced a slow inhale. Slow exhale. The hiss stopped. Aizawa leaned back, studying him. You see the problem, Aizawa said. Izuku swallowed. They think I'm dangerous. Aizawa's voice was calm, but not kind. They think you're unpredictable, Aizawa corrected. Izuku's jaw tightened. Aizawa tapped the paper. And they're not completely wrong, he said. Izuku flinched. Aizawa didn't blink. Your control is improving, Aizawa continued. But when you get cornered, your body tries to turn into something else. Izuku's throat tightened. Aizawa's gaze sharpened. Tell me the truth, he said. Can you guarantee you won't cross that line in the exam? Izuku froze. Guarantee? No. He could promise. He could try. But guarantee? He remembered muscular. The almost wings. The feral threshold clawing at him. Izuku swallowed hard. Number, he admitted, voice small. Aizawa nodded once, like he respected the honesty. Good, he said. Then we plan like adults. Izuku blinked. Plan. A's. Awa pulled out a small device and tossed it onto the desk. Izuku caught it. It was a black band with sensors and a small indicator light. A heat pressure monitor, Aizawa said. It syncs with your vent braces. Izuku stared. If your core spikes beyond safe thresholds, Aizawa continued, it will alert you, vibrate. If you ignore it, it will alert me. Izuku's stomach dropped. It alerts you. Aizawa's eyes were flat. You are a student, he said. Not a nuke. Izuku clenched the band in his hand, throat burning. He should have felt offended. But instead he felt relieved. Because if he lost control, someone would stop him. Even if he hated it. Aizawa stood. Midoriya, he said, voice low. The exam is designed to provoke bad choices. Izuku looked up. Aizawa's gaze was sharp. So make good ones, Aizawa said. Izuku swallowed. Nodding. Aizawa opened the door. Go, he ordered. And remember, being powerful doesn't earn a license. Izuku stood slowly. What does? He asked quietly. Aizawa's voice was flat. Not terrifying civilians, he said. Izuku flinched. And just a fraction. Even when you could. Izuku nodded. He left the office with the monitor band tight in his palm. And the furnace in his chest hummed, irritated. Because it didn't like being watched. 2. Exam day, a war zone of teenagers. The exam grounds were packed. Hundreds of students from different hero schools. Different uniforms, different attitudes. Some looked excited. Some looked arrogant. Some looked nervous. Izuku felt all of those things at once. And the moment he stepped in, he felt eyes on him. Whispers. People recognized him from the sports festival. Is that the dragon kid? Yeah, the one who nearly went feral. Watch him, he's dangerous. Izuku's throat tightened. The furnace warmed, defensive. They fear you. Show them why. Izuku forced his breathing slow. Uraraka walked beside him, smiling gently. Ignore them, she whispered. Kirishima cracked his knuckles. If anyone talks trash, all. Iida snapped, no violence. Todoroki said nothing, but his gaze was steady on Izuku, like he was measuring his breathing. Bakugo stood a few paces away, arms crossed, eyes sharp. He didn't say anything, but Izuku could feel it. Bakugo was watching him, too. Not with admiration, with threat, with a promise. If you lose control, I'll stop you. Izuku swallowed. He didn't hate that. It was grounding. Present Mike's voice boomed because of course he was there, the world's loudest alarm clock. Welcome to the Provisional Hero License Exam. Then the first phase was announced. Battle Royale style. Targets on their suits. Steel targets. Defend yours. Begin. The air exploded into chaos. Students launched quirks instantly. Wind blasts. Fire. Ice. Concrete spikes. Izuku moved fast. Low percent one for all, controlled. Weaving through attacks. He didn't want to fight. He wanted to survive phase 1 without triggering, uncontrolled escalation. The monitor band on his wrist vibrated faintly as his pressure rose. Izuku exhaled through his vents. Steam hissed softly. Pressure dropped. He moved again. A student from another school lunged at him with a blade quirk. Izuku dodged, stepped in, and knocked the blade aside with a precise elbow strike, no OFA surge. He snatched the student's target and retreated. Another student tried to ambush him from behind. Izuku smelled the sweat and adrenaline. Before the attack even came, dragon senses. He pivoted, grabbed their wrist, and tossed them over his hip into the dirt. Not brutal, not flashy, efficient. He collected enough targets quickly. He thought, for a moment, that maybe he could do this without trouble. Then the exam revealed its real purpose. And it hit Izuku exactly where it hurt. 3. Phase 2. Rescue Simulation, the worst place for a dragon. They moved into a disaster zone, collapsed buildings, smoke machines, screaming actors, injured mannequins. This was the real test. Not fighting. Rescue. Izuku's chest tightened. Rescue was harder than fighting. Because fighting let the dragon feel useful. Rescue demanded gentleness. Present Mike's voice boomed. Your job is to save civilians. Injured actors screamed. Smoke filled the air. People begged. Izuku moved immediately, guided by senses and training. He found an injured actor trapped under debris. He activated one for all low percent through his legs and back, lifted a concrete slab carefully, and slid them out. Breathe, Izuku said gently, voice calm. You're okay. He guided them to a safe zone. The monitor band stayed quiet. Good. He found another. Then another. Izuku was doing well. Until he heard it. A scream that sounded too real. He turned. And saw an actor pinned, bleeding, crying for help. A group of examinees hesitated. One said, that's risky, leave him for later. Izuku's chest tightened. The furnace warmed, anger, urgency. They're abandoning prey. Weak. Burn them. Izuku swallowed hard. No. Rescue. He ran toward the pinned actor. As he approached, a loud crash echoed. A building collapsed nearby, part of the simulation. Dust exploded. Smoke thickened. People screamed. The air turned chaotic, and Izuku's senses flooded. Too much information. Fear smells everywhere. Heartbeats everywhere. Pain sounds everywhere. Izuku's body reacted like it always did when overwhelmed. Pressure built. Heat rose. The feral threshold tugged upward. Scales prickled under his sleeves. The monitor band vibrated sharply. Izuku froze mid-step. Warning. Too high. He forced a breath. Steam hissed out of his vents. The pressure eased slightly. Then the pinned actor screamed again, louder. I can't breathe. Izuku's heart lurched. He sprinted, ignoring the vibration. He lifted debris off the actor, muscles shaking. He dragged them out. But the environment kept escalating, more collapses, more smoke. The band vibrated again, harder. Izuku's throat tightened. Heat surged. The dragon inside him whispered, urgent and furious. Stop playing gentle. Become big. Move everything. Save them all. Izuku's eyes widened. Because the dragon's logic made sense. If he transformed, if he became something bigger, he could lift debris easily. He could shield people with scales. He could fly over rubble. He could roar to clear space. He could do rescue work like a natural disaster in reverse. But the price? Loss of control. Fear. Panic. Civilians seeing a dragon in the smoke and thinking the disaster got worse. Izuku swallowed, trembling. The band vibrated like a heartbeat. Too high. Too high. Then a child actor cried, monster. Izuku froze. Not because the child meant him. Because the word hit his chest like a blade. Monster. Stain's word. The crowd's chant. Muscular's laughter. Bakugo's threat. Izuku's throat burned. His scales surged instinctively in response, armor rising to defend pride. The band vibrated violently. Danger zone. Izuku's vision narrowed. He felt the feral threshold clawing up fast. And then, a hand grabbed his wrist. Bakugo. Bakugo yanked him sideways behind a concrete slab, shielding them from smoke and chaos. Bakugo's eyes were furious. Breathe, damn it, Bakugo snarled. Izuku gasped, blinking. Bakugo shoved the monitor band toward Izuku's face. It's screaming. Bakugo hissed. You're about to go feral in a rescue exam. You wanna get disqualified. You wanna scare civilians. Izuku's chest heaved. I was trying to. Bakugo cut him off. You're trying too hard. Bakugo snapped. You think you can save everyone by turning into a bigger weapon. Izuku flinched. Bakugo's voice dropped, raw. That's not heroism, Bakugo hissed. That's ego. Izuku froze. Ego. The word hit different. Because Izuku realized, Bakugo wasn't totally wrong. Some part of him wanted to prove he wasn't weak. Wanted to prove he could handle it. Wanted to show the world the dragon could be useful. The furnace pulsed, offended. Bakugo grabbed Izuku's collar. Listen, Bakugo snarled, eyes burning. You're not All Might. You're not gonna carry the whole world alone. Izuku's throat tightened. Bakugo shoved him back. So stop trying to be a damn Godzilla and start being a hero. Izuku stared at him, shaken. Bakugo's jaw clenched. Then he looked away, voice rough. We rescue together. Bakugo muttered. Izuku's chest loosened slightly. The band vibrated again, softer now. Izuku forced slow breaths. Steam hissed quietly. Pressure dropped. The scales receded. His vision cleared. He looked at Bakugo, really looked. Bakugo had come to stop him. Not to embarrass him. To keep him from becoming the thing everyone feared. Izuku swallowed. Okay, Izuku whispered. Bakugo snorted. Yeah, whatever. Move. They moved. Together. For the make or break moment, saving without scaring. The exam environment escalated again, smoke thick, debris falling. Grow. Up of, civilians, were trapped under a collapsed structure. Other examinees panicked, shouting over each other. Izuku felt the pressure rising again. But he let it climb unchecked. He used the vent brace early, small controlled releases. He asked for help. He didn't try to be a one-man solution. Todoroki. Izuku shouted. Ice supports. Stabilize the beams. Todoroki nodded, instantly forming ice braces to keep debris from shifting. Uraraka. Izuku called. Float the lighter rubble, make space. Uraraka activated her quirk, lifting broken concrete chunks so they could slide trapped people out. Kirishima. Izuku shouted. Shield the civilians while we move debris. Kirishima hardened, stepping into falling rubble like a wall. Bakugo blasted controlled explosions away from civilians, small, precise, clearing smoke and debris. Izuku's chest warmed, not with pride, with relief. Because teamwork didn't feed the dragon the way solo dominance did. It fed something else. Trust. They pulled the civilians out. One by one. No roaring. No scales. No panic. Izuku guided an actor to safety, voice steady. "You're okay," he repeated. "We've got you." His band stayed quiet. His vents hissed softly, controlled. For the first time in a high-pressure environment, Izuku felt something like victory. Not over enemies. Over himself. 5. The results. Approved, with conditions. When the exam ended, exhaustion hit Izuku like a truck. He sat on the ground with his classmates, sweat-soaked, throat sore, but stable. Present Mike shouted results. Names were called. Pass. 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 Izuku held his breath. Then, Midoriya Izuku. Izuku's heart jumped. Present Mike's voice boomed. Pass. Relief slammed into Izuku so hard he nearly cried. Uraraka cheered. Kirishima whooped. Iida looked like he might faint from gratitude. Bakugo smirked like it was obvious. Izuku exhaled, shaking. But then Present Mike added, louder. With a note. Izuku froze. A note. Present Mike read from a screen, expression unusually serious. Student Midoriya has demonstrated exceptional rescue instincts and improved control under stress, Present Mike said. However, his quirk exhibits volatile escalation markers. Provisional. Licenses granted under recommendation of continued monitoring and specialized restraint training. Izuku's stomach twisted. The crowd of examinees murmured. Izuku's cheeks burned. Aizawa's words echoed. Not a nuke. Uraraka squeezed Izuku's shoulder. It's fine, she whispered. You passed. Izuku swallowed. He did pass. But it felt like passing while wearing a collar. And the dragon furnace inside him hummed, low, resentful. Because the dragon didn't want conditions. It wanted freedom. 6. End of Chapter 8. The license in his hand, the chain in his chest. Back at the dorms, Izuku sat on his bed holding the provisional license card. It was small, plastic, official, a step toward being real. He should have been happy. Instead, he stared at the words on the note attached. Continue monitoring. Izuku's fingers trembled. He'd saved civilians. He'd controlled himself. He'd done what they wanted. And still, they didn't trust him. The furnace warmed with frustration. Show them. Prove them wrong. Become undeniable. Izuku exhaled slowly. He didn't vent. He didn't roar. He just sat with it. Then a knock came at the door. Bakugo. Izuku blinked. What? Bakugo shoved his hands in his pockets, looking annoyed. You didn't screw up. Bakugo muttered. Izuku stared. Bakugo rolled his eyes. Don't make it weird, he snapped. Izuku's throat tightened. Thanks, Izuku whispered. Bakugo's gaze flicked to the license card. They're gonna watch you, Bakugo said. Izuku nodded. Yeah. Bakugo's jaw clenched. Fine, Bakugo muttered. Let them. Izuku blinked. Bakugo looked away, voice rough. If you're gonna be a hero, Bakugo said. Be one in their face. Izuku's chest warmed, not furnace warm. Human warm. Bakugo turned to leave, then paused. In Midoriya, Bakugo added, not looking back, if you ever feel it slipping. Izuku's breath caught. Bakugo's voice was low. Tell me. Izuku stared at him, stunned. Bakugo scoffed like he hated himself for saying it, then stomped away. Izuku sat there holding the license card. Hands shaking. Because for the first time, the chain around his chest didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like a lifeline. And deep inside, the dragon furnace hummed quietly. Not pleased. Not angry. Just listening. Because the world had given Izuku a license. But the real test wasn't the card. It was the choice he'd have to make every time the dragon begged to rise. Be feared, or be trusted. The provisional license card felt heavier than it should have. It was just plastic. A little official stamp. A photo where Izuku looked like he was trying not to sneeze. But the note attached to it was the real weight. Continue monitoring. Volatile escalation markers. Specialized restraint training recommended. Izuku didn't hate the words. He hated how true they could become if he ever slipped. Because he'd learned something important over the last few months. The world didn't forgive accidents when you were powerful enough to be catastrophic. And Izuku Midoriya, storm in his muscles. furnace in his chest, was starting to understand that his future didn't just depend on what he could do. It depended on what he could refuse to do. Then the work-study offers came in. And one name on the list felt like fate trying to test him. Sir Night-Eye. All Might's former sidekick. All Might's former friend. The man who had looked at All Might's retirement and said, "I told you so." Izuku stared at the offer until his eyes hurt. Because if there was anyone in Japan who wouldn't be impressed by power, it was the man who had once stood beside the strongest hero alive and still demanded precision. Izuku swallowed. Okay, he told himself. If I'm going to be watched anyway, I should train somewhere that teaches me how to survive being watched. So he accepted. And the next day, it rained. Sir Night-Eye's agency, smiles that don't warm. Night-Eye's office was clean in a way that felt like judgment. Not tidy. Controlled. The air smelled like polished wood, printer ink. And something sharp, like peppermint and discipline. Izuku stood in the lobby with his backpack straps gripped tightly, monitor band snug under his sleeve, vent braces hidden beneath his cuffs. Mirio Tagata stood beside him. Bright as a sunrise. Midoriya. Mirio whispered with cheerful intensity. Don't worry. Night-Eye's scary but he's fair. Izuku blinked. He's scary. Mirio laughed softly. You'll see. The secretary led them in. Sir Night-Eye sat behind his desk like a man carved from logic. Sharp hair. Sharp suit. Sharp eyes. He didn't look up immediately. He kept writing, just long enough to let silence do the work. Then he lifted his gaze to Izuku. And Izuku felt it, like a flashlight turning on inside his chest. Night-Eye's eyes flicked to Izuku's wrists. To the subtle bulge of the braces. To the monitor band. To the way Izuku's breathing stayed careful. Night-Eye's mouth didn't smile. So, Night-Eye said calmly, "You're the boy All Might chose." Izuku swallowed. "Yes, sir." Night-Eye stared at him for a long moment. Then he said the sentence Izuku dreaded. "Show me." Izuku froze. "Show you." Night-Eye leaned back, fingers steepled. "Your control," Night-Eye said. "Your judgment. Your temperament." Izuku's chest tightened. The furnace warmed, defensive. "He doubts you. Prove him wrong." Izuku forced a breath. "What do you want me to do?" Night-Eye's eyes were flat. "Catch it," he said. He tossed a stamp. A small metal stamp, spinning through the air. Izuku blinked, and his body moved. Not one for all. Not dragon. Just reflex and training. He caught it cleanly. Night-Eye's eyes narrowed. "Again," he said. He tossed it faster. Izuku caught it. Again. Again. The pace increased, each throw sharper, more demanding. Izuku's breathed, but his chest warmed. Pressure built ki. Edly behind his ribs because stress always called the furnace awake. The monitor band vibrated faintly. Izuku exhaled through his vents, soft hiss, pressure dropped. Night-Eye noticed. Of course he did. His eyes narrowed slightly. He tossed the stamp one last time, hard, aimed at Izuku's face. Izuku flinched, but he caught it inches from his nose. Night-Eye paused. Then he spoke, calm and precise. Not reacting like a boy who suddenly got power, Night-Eye said. You're reacting like a boy who's terrified of what happens if he makes a mistake. Izuku's throat tightened. Mirio shifted uncomfortably, smile fading. Night-Eye's gaze stayed on Izuku. That fear can make you careful, Night-Eye continued. Or it can make you reckless when you finally snap. Izuku swallowed. I won't snap, Izuku said quickly. Night-Eye's expression didn't change. That is not an answer, he said. Izuku's cheeks heated. He forced himself to slow down. I'm working on it, Izuku said, voice quieter. I have monitoring. I have vent training. I have. Night-Eye's eyes sharpened. I didn't ask about your equipment. Izuku froze. Night-Eye leaned forward slightly. I'm not interested in the story of your struggle, Night-Eye said. I'm interested in the result. Izuku's chest tightened. The furnace pulsed. He's disrespecting you. Show him your teeth. Izuku clenched his fist under the desk, nails biting his palm. Pain anchored him. He inhaled slowly. I understand, Izuku said, voice steady. Night-Eye stared. Then, finally, he nodded once. Good, he said. Because here, your job is not to be inspiring. He steered at the agency screens, case reports, rescue calls, analytics. Your job is to be useful, Night-Eye said. Izuku nodded. Night-Eye's gaze flicked to Mirio. And Mirio, Night Eyes said, voice softening just a fraction. We'll show you what that looks like. Mirio's smile returned instantly. Yes, sir. Izuku blinked. Night Eye's eyes returned to Izuku. One more thing, he said. Izuku stiffened. Yes. Night Eye's voice stayed calm, but it landed like a weight. Do not use excessive force, he said. Do not frighten civilians. Izuku swallowed. Night Eye's gaze sharpened. And do not, he added, turn your quirk into a spectacle. Izuku's throat burned. Yes, sir, he whispered. Night Eye leaned back. Good, he said. Now go learn. And Izuku realized, this wasn't going to be a work study. It was going to be a trial. 2. Mirio Tagata, the hero who laughs at fear. Outside the office, Mirio bounced on his heels. So, Mirio said brightly. First day, patrol. Izuku blinked. Just like that. Mirio grinned. Yep. And don't worry, if anything happens, I've got you. Izuku's chest warmed, human warm. Mirio noticed the monitor band as Izuku adjusted his sleeve. Oh, that's interesting, Mirio said, curious. Is that new support gear? Izuku hesitated. Mirio's smile stayed gentle, not pushy. Izuku exhaled. It's a monitor. For my core. Mirio tilted his head. Your core. Izuku swallowed. My quirk has escalation problems. When stress spikes, my body tries to. Izuku stopped himself before he said become a dragon. Mirio nodded slowly, but he didn't look scared. He didn't step back. He didn't flinch. He just smiled softer. Sounds rough, Mirio said. Izuku blinked. That's it. Mirio laughed lightly. What, you want me to gasp and call you a monster? Izuku flinched at the word. Mirio's smile faded slightly. Sorry, he said, quick and sincere. Bad word. Izuku swallowed. It's okay. Mirio shrugged, cheerful again. Look, Midoriya. A lot of heroes have scary powers. The diff. Errance is what they choose to do with them. Izuku's throat tightened. Mirio leaned closer, voice warm. And hey, Mirio added, grinning, the fact that you're worried about it. That's already a good sign. Izuku blinked hard. The furnace inside him hummed, quiet, uncertain. Mirio slapped him lightly on the shoulder. Come on, Mirio said. Let's go be useful. And as they stepped outside into the rain, Izuku realized something. Mirio Tagata moved like a hero who didn't carry fear in his posture. He carried it like a backpack, present but not steering. Izuku wanted that. Badly. 3. Patrol in Th. Rain. The city has too many heartbeats. Rain blurred neon lights into watery streaks. Cars hissed past. Umbrellas collided. People moved like a river with no memory of the individual drops. Izuku wall. Ked beside Mirio through the crowded streets, eyes scanning instinctively. The dragon core sharpened his senses in dense spaces. He could smell anxiety, excitement, anger. It was overwhelming if he let it be. So Izuku didn't. He focused on patterns. Mirio chatted casually with civilians, smiling, waving, making them feel safe just by existing. A little kid pointed. Lemillion. Mirio posed dramatically. Yes, Lemillion is here. The kid squealed. Izuku watched, stunned. Mirio didn't just fight villains. He fought fear, by being a friendly shape in the world. Izuku's chest tightened. Could he ever be that? Would anyone ever squeal happily at the sight of him? Or would they flinch and whisper, dragon, like it was a warning? The furnace hummed, irritated by the doubt. Be bigger. Be undeniable. Izuku exhaled, slow. No, he wasn't going to win trust by being more terrifying. He'd win it by being consistent. By being safe. They turned down a side street, quieter, narrower. And that's when Izuku smelled it. Fear. Not general city fear. Specific. Sharp. Young. Like a small animal trapped in a corner. Izuku's head snapped to the right. Mirio noticed immediately. You smell something? Mirio asked, eyebrows raised. Izuku blinked. Kind of. Mirio's smile faded slightly. Okay. Lead. They followed the smell around a corner. And then Izuku saw her. A tiny girl, maybe 5 or 6, standing under a dripping awning. White hair. Red eyes. Arms covered in bandages like someone tried to hide what was underneath. Her small body shook like the rain was inside her bones. Izuku's heart lurched. He dragon core reacted instantly, pressure rising, heat warming, not with aggression. With alarm. Hurt child. Protect. The girl's eyes met Izuku's. And she moved. Not like a kid asking for help. Like prey choosing the nearest shelter. She stumbled forward and grabbed Izuku's sleeve with both hands, clinging. Her voice was small. Please, she whispered. Don't let him take me back. Izuku froze. The furnace tightened behind his ribs. Furious on her behalf. Mirio's expression sharpened instantly, hero mode switching on. Izuku looked down at the girl, throat tight. What's your name? Izuku asked gently. The girl trembled. Eri, she whispered. Izuku's chest tightened. Eri looked up at him with eyes that didn't belong on a child. Eyes that had learned what pain means. Izuku opened his mouth to promise something. And then he smelled something else. A different scent. Sterile. Chemical. Like a hospital hallway in bleach. And beneath it, something darker. Blood, contained. Not fresh, but frequent. Izuku's head lifted slowly. Footsteps approached through the rain. Calm. Measured. A man in a plague doctor-style mask stepped into view. Tall. Coat pristine despite the weather. Gloved hands. And an aura that made Izuku's furnace go cold hot all at once. Because the dragon core didn't just register him as danger. It registered him as a type of danger. The kind that doesn't roar. The kind that dissects. The man's eyes, visible through the mask, landed on Eri. Then on Izuku. Then on Mirio. His voice was polite. Too polite. Good evening, he said. Mirio's posture shifted subtly, placing himself between the man and Izuku without making it obvious. Izuku's heart hammered. Eri clung tighter, Shahi's head slightly. Eri, he said gently, like he was calling a lost pet. There you are. Eri whimpered. Izuku's fingers curled. The furnace warmed instantly. Threat. Prey belongs to him. No. Protect. Izuku forced his breathing slower, trying not to flare. Mirio spoke first, friendly tone with steel underneath. Hey there. Mirio said, smiling. This little girl seems lost. Are you her guardian? The man's gaze stayed calm. Yes, he said. I'm her father. Eri flinched violently at that word. Izuku's stomach twisted. The dragon core surged, offended. Lie. Predator. Mirio's smile didn't move, but his eyes sharpened. I see, Mirio said lightly. Well, she doesn't seem comfortable. We could bring her to the police station and... The man's polite voice cut in, still calm. That won't be necessary, he said. Eri is prone to panic. She has a condition. He stepped closer. Izuku's skin prickled. The monitor band vibrated faintly, rising pressure. Izuku exhaled through his vents, soft hiss, trying to keep the furnace stable. The man's eyes flicked to Izuku's wrists. He noticed. Of course he noticed. His gaze returned to Eri. Come, he said softly. Eri shook her head, tears mixing with rain. No, she whispered. Izuku's chest tightened. This was the moment. The hero moment. The moment where you grab the child and run. The moment where you say, no, to the scary adult. The moment where you do what your instincts scream. And Izuku's instincts, storm and dragon together, were screaming. Take her. Run. Burn him if he follows. But Mirio's hand lifted slightly, subtle, a warning. Not to the villain. To Izuku. Not yet. Izuku's throat tightened. He didn't understand. How could, not yet, exist when a child was shaking like this? The man's voice stayed calm. Eri, he said again, gentle. Don't make this difficult. Eri's grip tightened on Izuku's sleeve like she was trying to fuse herself to him. Izuku's heart cracked. He looked at Mirio, desperate. Mirio's smile stayed, but his eyes were tense. This was calculation. This was procedure. This was what Night Eye meant by being useful. Because the world wasn't always simple enough to let you punch the bad guy immediately. The man stepped closer. Izuku's furnace surged. The monitor band vibrated harder. Danger zone approaching. Izuku felt scales prickling under his sleeves, trying to surface. He forced a breath so slow it hurt. Steam hissed softly from his vents. The scales stopped rising. Barely. The man reached out. Mirio spoke, tone still polite. Sir, Mirio said, she's clearly scared. Just to be safe, we should verify. The man's eyes sharpened behind the mask. Hero course students, he said softly, should be careful about involving themselves in family matters. The words were polite, but the threat was clear. Mirio's posture tightened. Izuku's chest burned. The dragon core whispered, low and furious. He thinks you're harmless. Prove him wrong. Izuku's hands trembled. Then Eri looked up at him. And in that tiny voice, she said, "Please." Izuku's throat tightened so hard he could barely breathe. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to scoop her up and run. He wanted to roar the whole street empty and dare the world to judge him later. But Mirio's hand touched Izuku's arm, gentle, grounding. Mirio's eyes said one thing. If we move wrong, she dies. Izuku froze. The man's gloved hand closed around Eri's wrist. Eri cried out, a small broken sound. Izuku's body lurched forward. Monitor band vibrated violently. The furnace surged. And Izuku forced himself to stop. He forced himself to stand still. He forced himself to swallow the roar. Because if he flared here, if he transformed in a crowded street, if he attacked without proof, the system would label him exactly what it already feared. And worse. This man looked like the kind of villain who would use that. The man pulled Eri toward him. Eri's fingers slipped from Izuku's sleeve. Her eyes stayed locked on Izuku's. Like she was memorizing the face of someone who almost saved her. Then she was gone, pulled into the rain, disappearing behind the man's coat. The man paused, glancing back. His voice was still polite. "Good night," he said. And then he walked away with the child. Izuku stood frozen in the rain, chest burning, throat tight. The furnace didn't whisper. It didn't growl. It just raged silently under his ribs, pressure building like a storm trapped behind glass. Mirio exhaled slowly. Izuku didn't look at him. He couldn't. Because if he spoke, the words would come out ugly. "How?" Izuku whispered finally, voice shaking, "Did we let that happen?" Mirio's face tightened. "We didn't have enough," Mirio said quietly. "No warrant. No backup. No intel. And Mirio swallowed. "He wasn't normal," Mirio finished. Izuku's fists clenched. The monitor band vibrated in warning, his anger spiking. Izuku forced a breath, steam hissing from vents. Pressure dropped. Barely. Mirio's voice turned firm. "We're going back," Mirio said. "We tell Night Eye everything. Now." Izuku nodded stiffly. But inside, something twisted. Because, telling, felt small. And the rain felt cold. And Eri's hand had been warm on his sleeve. "For Sir Night Eye's office, the future isn't kind." Back at the agency, Night Eye listened without interrupting. Mirio explained the encounter, Eri, the masked man. The fear, the threat. Izuku stood silently, hands clenched, breathing controlled through sheer force of will. Night Eye's eyes narrowed as he heard the description. When Mirio finished, Night Eye's expression turned colder. "Kai Chisaki," Night Eye said quietly. Izuku blinked. "You know him." Night Eye's gaze sharpened. "I know of him," Night Eye said. "Overhaul." The word sounded like a machine chewing bone. Izuku's stomach dropped. Night Eye stood. "Mirio," he ordered, "report this immediately through proper channels. We are not acting alone." Mirio nodded. "Yes, sir." Izuku's voice cracked. "What about the girl?" Izuku asked. "Eri, she." Night Eye's gaze snapped to him. "You will not," Night Eye said, calm and lethal, "charge into a Yakuza situation because your heart hurts." Izuku flinched. His furnace surged, offended, furious. The monitor band vibrated. Izuku forced a breath. Steam hissed. Night Eye's eyes didn't soften. "That child is in danger," Izuku said, voice shaking. Night Eye's voice stayed cold. "And if you act stupidly," Night Eye said, "you will get her killed faster." Izuku's throat tightened. Night Eye stepped closer, eyes sharp. "Heroism without strategy is vanity," Night Eye said. Izuku froze. Vanity. Bakugo's word from the exam. Izuku's chest burned. He didn't want to be vain. He wanted to be right. He wanted to save the child. Itai's voice softened just barely, still harsh, but real. "I understand your instinct," Night Eye said. "But instincts are not orders. They are noise." Izuku swallowed. Night Eye's gaze flicked to Izuku's wrists. "And you," Night Eye added, "have more noise than most." Izuku flinched. Night Eye sat down again. "We will proceed carefully," he said. "If overhaul is involved, this is bigger than a single rescue. This is a network." Izuku's hands trembled. Eri's eyes flashed in his mind. Her whisper, "Please." Izuku's voice was small. "What if she doesn't survive?" Careful. Night Eye didn't answer immediately. He looked at Izuku like he was weighing him. Then he said, quietly, "Then we fail." The words hit like a punch. Night Eye's gaze hardened. So don't fail, he said. Learn. Observe. Be useful. Izuku swallowed hard. Yes, sir, he whispered. But inside his chest, the dragon furnace roared in silence. Because, useful, didn't comfort children. Useful, didn't stop hands from grabbing small wrists. Izuku walked out of the skin didn't fit. 5. End of chapter 9, The Promise He Didn't Speak. That night, Izuku stood on the agency rooftop alone. Rain had stopped, but the city still dripped with leftover darkness. He stared at his sleeve where Eri's fingers had been. He could still feel it. His monitor band was quiet now, but his chest wasn't. The furnace hummed, low, furious, wounded. Not because it didn't get to fight. Because it didn't get to protect. And Izuku realized something terrifying. The dragon core didn't only awaken for combat. It awakened for helplessness. For prey. For the sight of something small being taken. It wanted to be big enough to stop the world from doing that ever again. Izuku clenched his fists. He remembered the moment he froze. The moment he obeyed procedure. The moment he let the child go. His throat tightened. I'm sorry, he whispered to the night. And then, quieter, like an oath carved into bone. I'll find you. The furnace pulsed. The whisper returned, not feral, not angry. Just inevitable. Next time, don't hesitate. Izuku's breath shuddered. He stared out at the city, eyes burning. Because the next time he saw Eri, he wasn't sure he'd be able to stay small. The next time Izuku saw Eri, it wasn't in the rain. It was underground. In a place that smelled like antiseptic, blood, and something worse, something that made the dragon core in Izuku's chest go cold hot like a predator recognizing a slaughterhouse. He knew, instantly, that Night Eye had been right about one thing. This wasn't a simple rescue. This was a system built to break a child. And systems were harder to fight than villains. But Izuku had also learned something since Kamino. A hero who never acts because the plan isn't perfect is just a spectator with a license. So when the raid finally came, Izuku stepped into the darkness with one decision already locked in his ribs. He would follow the plan. He would obey orders. He would use restraint. Until the moment restraint stopped being heroism and started being cowardice. 1. The raid briefing. You don't get to go feral. Night Eye's briefing room felt like a courtroom. Heroes sat in rows, pros with scars and sharp eyes. Police officers. Tactical units. And in the middle, a map of the Shihasaikai compound. Eri's prison. Izuku stood with Mirio, Kirishima, and a few others on the side, interns among monsters. Night Eye clicked through images. Overhaul's quirk disassembles and reassembles matter on contact, he said calmly. He can kill with a touch. He can reshape the environment instantly. Izuku's stomach tightened. Night Eye's pointer tapped another image, Eri's small figure captured on surveillance. This child, Night Eye said, voice colder, is the source of his product. Izuku's fists clenched. The furnace warmed. Night Eye's eyes flicked to him. Izuku forced his hands to relax. Night Eye continued. Our objectives. Arrest Overhaul, secure evidence, rescue Eri, he said. We move in teams. We do not improvise unless absolutely necessary. Quote. His gaze sharpened. Especially you, Night Eye added, eyes on Izuku. Izuku swallowed. Yes, sir. Night Eye's voice dropped, precise. Your quirk volatility is a known risk, he said. If you escalate and endanger civilians or teammates, I will remove you from the field. Izuku's cheeks burned. Mirio's hand lightly touched Izuku's shoulder, a quiet support. Izuku exhaled slowly. The furnace hummed. Irritated. Night Eye leaned forward. Midoriya, he said softly, almost pitying. If you want to save that girl. Izuku's eyes lifted. Don't become the thing she should fear, Night Eye finished. Izuku's throat tightened. He nodded. I won't. Night Eye didn't look convinced. But he nodded once anyway. Move, he ordered. And the raid began. To the entrance. Overhaul's maze. The compound was a trap pretending to be a building. The moment they breached, the ground shifted. Walls moved like living things. Floors rose. Corridors collapsed. New corridors formed. Overhaul didn't just fight with fists. He fought with space. Izuku ran with his team, heart hammering. The furnace stayed warm, steady, tense. He vented in small controlled hisses to keep pressure stable. Mirio moved like he belonged here, phasing through walls, scouting, reporting. Kirishima guarded like a shield. Pros fought ahead, clearing threats. Then the maze split them. A wall rose betway. Izuku and Mirio so fast it felt like the building swallowed them. Izuku slammed his palms against the new stone barrier. Mirio! He shouted. No answer. His chest tightened. The furnace warmed sharply, panic. Monitor band vibrated. Izuku forced a slow breath. Steam hissed. Pressure eased. Stay useful, Izuku reminded himself. He moved with Kirishima deeper. And then the air changed. Not smell. Feeling. Like the world got heavier. Izuku's dragon core recognized it immediately. Eri was close. 3. Eri's room. Please don't leave me again. They found her in a hallway that smelled like bleach. A door at the end. A tiny figure standing in front of it like she'd been waiting for someone to either save her or hurt her again. Eri. Bandages. Small shoulders trembling. Izuku's heart cracked. The furnace surged, not feral. Protective. Eri's eyes met Izuku's. And she flinched, like she wasn't sure if hope was safe. Izuku stepped forward slowly, hands open. Eri, Izuku said softly. It's me. Eri blinked, tears forming instantly. You, she whispered. Izuku swallowed hard. We're here to help. Eri trembled. Then she moved, fast, desperate, throwing herself at Izuku's chest. Izuku froze for half a second. Then gently wrapped his arms around her. She was so small, so light. She shook like a leaf in a storm. I thought, Eri whispered, voice breaking, I thought I imagined you. Izuku's throat tightened. I'm real, Izuku whispered. Eri's fingers clenched his shirt like she was terrified he'd vanish. Don't leave, she whispered. Izuku's eyes burned. I won't, he promised. The furnace hummed, heavy. Kirishima's voice was soft. Careful, we have to move. Izuku nodded. He lifted Eri carefully into his arms. She clung tight. And as soon as he turned, the hallway behind them moved. Stone erupted upward like a mouth closing. A wall slammed down, cutting off escape. Then a voice spoke from the other side, polite, calm, terrifying. You found her, Overhaul said. Izuku's skin prickled. The furnace went cold hot. Not fear. Recognition. Predator. Overhaul stepped into view. Mask clean. Gloves spotless. Eyes calm. Like he was about to give a lecture, not commit violence. Eri's body seized in Izuku's arms. No, she whispered, shaking. Izuku's jaw clenched. Overhaul tilted his head slightly. You're hurting her, Overhaul said calmly, gaze on Izuku's arms around Eri. She's fragile. Izuku's chest burned. You did this to her, Izuku said, voice shaking with rage. Overhaul's eyes narrowed slightly. This is necessary, Overhaul said. Your society is diseased. Quirks created chaos. I'm curing it. Izuku's throat tightened. Eri whimpered. Overhaul took one step forward. Return her, he said politely. And I won't kill you. The furnace surged. The dragon whispered, low and furious. He thinks you'll obey. Izuku forced his breathing slow. Back away, Izuku said, voice steady. Overhaul sighed. A shame, he murmured. Then he moved. For Overhaul's touch. The moment the line breaks. Overhaul lunged, not fast like Stain, not wild like Muscular. Precise. Efficient. He reached for Izuku's arm. Izuku shifted Eri behind his shoulder and dodged. Overhaul's gloved fingers grazed Izuku's sleeve. And the fabric dissolved. Not torn. Disassembled. Izuku's eyes widened. The furnace surged in panic. Monitor band vibrated violently. Izuku jumped backward, venting hard, steam blasting out. Overhaul stepped through teething. His hand touched the ground. And spikes erupted upward, trying to spear Izuku. Izuku activated one for all through his legs, leaping with Eri in his arms. His knees screamed. His chest burned. Pressure built too fast. The dragon core hated being cornered. True form. Izuku clenched his jaw. Not yet. Not with Eri in his arms. He landed on a ledge, holding Eri tight. Overhaul looked up at him calmly. Eri clung, sobbing silently. Overhaul spoke softly, almost gentle. Eri, he said, come here. Eri shook her head violently. Overhaul sighed. You force me, he murmured. He touched the wall, and the entire corridor shifted, folding like clay. The ledge Izuku stood on crumbled into a slope. Izuku slid, gripping Eri tight, boots scraping stone. He slammed into the ground hard. Pain flared in his ribs. Eri cried out. Izuku's chest snapped. The furnace surged. Scales erupted across his forearms and neck like armor responding to injury. His vision narrowed. He heard his own heartbeat like a drum. Overhaul's eyes sharpened behind the mask. There it is, Overhaul murmured. The animal response. Izuku's teeth ached. The dragon whispered. Burn him. Tear him. End it. Izuku forced a breath. Steam hissed. But it wasn't enough. Overhaul moved again, hand reaching for Eri. And Izuku's mind went blank with terror. Not fear for himself. Fear for the child in his arms. If he touches her, she goes back. Izuku's chest convulsed. The feral threshold slammed upward. The pressure behind his shoulder blades exploded. And for the first time, Izuku didn't stop it. Not fully. Something tore through his back, pain like a ripping seam. Not wings. Not yet. But wing buds, half-formed, scaled ridges pushing through skin under his costume. Izuku screamed. A roar shook the corridor. Overhaul paused, surprised. The sound wasn't just loud. It was physical, a concussive wave that cracked tiles and forced Overhaul's coat to flutter like a flag in a storm. Eri clung to Izuku, terrified. But when she looked up, her eyes weren't just fear. They were hope. Because the monster in Izuku wasn't pointed at her. It was between her and the world. Izuku's breathing was ragged. Scales covered his arms fully now. His eyes flashed gold. He didn't turn into a full dragon. But he wasn't fully human either. Overhaul's calm voice tightened. You're unstable, Overhaul said. Izuku's voice came out rough. Layered with something deeper. Don't, Izuku growled, touch her. Overhaul's eyes narrowed. Then he smiled faintly behind the mask. Then I'll dismantle you, he said. Fight the fight, controlled monster. Izuku moved. Fast. Not a wild charge. A controlled burst. He activated one for all, not maximum, but high enough to matter, through his legs and core. The storm surged. The furnace answered. He slammed into Overhaul, driving him backward. Overhaul touched the ground. Stone spikes erupted. Izuku pivoted, dragging Overhaul's angle off target, using his scales as armor where he could. A spike grazed Izuku's side. His scales cracked, absorbing impact, pain flaring but not fatal. Izuku's vents hissed, dumping pressure with every movement. He wasn't letting the furnace build to explosion. He was using it like fuel in controlled bursts. Overhaul touched Izuku's forearm. Izuku jerked away, but the skin under his sleeve tingled like it wanted to disassemble. Izuku snarled, not roaring, just warning. He breathed out a narrow stream of superheated steam, not to burn Overhaul's body, but to obscure and force distance. Overhaul stepped back slightly, coat dampening. He clicked his tongue. This is inefficient, Overhaul muttered. He slammed his palm to the floor. And the corridor erupted into a jagged maze of spikes, pillars, and shifting stone. Izuku leapt, carrying Eri tight, trying to keep her safe from impacts. His heart hammered. Every jump risked a wrong landing. Every wrong landing risked Overhaul's touch. And every second, the feral threshold whispered. Stop carrying. Fight free. Become big. Izuku's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. No. Eri came first. He landed behind a pillar and set Eri down carefully. Stay behind me, Izuku whispered. Eri nodded, trembling, grabbing his cape fabric. Overhaul stepped into view. His voice was polite again. Eri, he said softly, your quirk will activate if you panic. Izuku froze. Eri's body trembled harder. Overhaul continued, calm and cruel. If you make a mess, Overhaul said, I'll have to fix you again. Eri whimpered, eyes wide. Izuku's chest snapped. Rage surged like fire. The furnace flared. Scales tightened. Wing buds burned. Monitor band vibrated violently, but this time, Izuku didn't care about the committee. He cared about the child behind him. Izuku stepped forward slowly, shaking with controlled fury. You're not touching her again, Izuku said. Overhaul's eyes narrowed. Then die, Overhaul said. He lunged. Izuku met him. Sixth, the turning point. Mirio's sacrifice. A flash of yellow. Mirio appeared through the floor like a miracle. Midoriya. Mirio shouted. I've got her. Mirio phased in, grabbing Eri with gentle speed, pulling her behind him. Izuku's chest loosened slightly with relief. Mirio smiled at Eri, voice warm. You're okay, Mirio promised. We're getting you out. Eri stared, trembling, but she didn't pull away. Overhaul's eyes sharpened. He moved for Mirio. And everything happened too fast. A quirk bullet, fired from the shadows, hit Mirio. Mirio's body jerked. His quirk vanished like a light turning off. For one heartbeat, Mirio stood still, shocked. Overhaul's hand shot out. Izuku screamed. No. Mirio shoved Eri behind him and took the hit. Overhaul's touch tore into Mirio, blood, bone, instant destruction. But Mirio moved anyway, pure will, twisting out of fatal contact. He collapsed, bleeding. Eri screamed. Izuku's vision went red. The feral threshold didn't just rise. It exploded. The furnace roared. Pressure blasted through Izuku's lungs. His wing buds too. Further, scaled ridges ripping costume fabric. His roar shook the corridor so hard dust fell like rain. Overhaul stepped back for the first time, surprised. Izuku's voice came out wrong, too deep, too wild. He couldn't even finish the sentence. He launched forward, not reckless, not blind, but with something primal in his precision. He wasn't just fighting, he was punishing. Overhaul touched the ground, spikes rose. Izuku smashed them apart with one-for-all bursts, scales absorbing debris cuts. Overhaul tried to touch Izuku's chest. Izuku pivoted, grabbed Overhaul's wrist, and slammed IT into the ground hard enough to crack stone. Overhaul hissed. Izuku lifted his fist, and stopped. He felt it. The dragon wanted to crush Overhaul's skull. To end him permanently. To make sure he could never touch Eri again. Izuku's hand trembled. Eri screamed behind him. Stop. Izuku froze. Eri's voice was small but desperate. Don't hurt him like that. She cried. Izuku's chest tightened. Because Eri's fear wasn't just fear of Overhaul. It was fear of what Izuku could become. Izuku stared at his own shaking fist. Scales gleamed. Wing buds burned. He felt enormous. He felt capable of ending lives. He felt dangerous. And the dragon whispered, "She doesn't understand. End threat anyway." Izuku swallowed hard. He forced his fist down. He exhaled through his vents, hard. Steam blasted sideways. Pressure dumped. The scales didn't vanish, but the feral threshold dipped slightly. Izuku's voice came out rough but clear. "I'm saving you," Izuku rasped. Eri sobbed. "I know." Izuku blinked. Eri's eyes were wide, crying. "I know," she repeated, shaking, "but don't become like him." The words hit Izuku like a blade. Izuku's throat tightened. He looked at Overhaul, bloodied, furious, still dangerous. Then he looked at Eri, small, trembling, trusting. And Iagon, not monster, hero. He grabbed Overhaul and slammed him into the wall, disabling, not killing. Then he stepped back, breathing hard. "Run," Izuku ordered Mirio weakly, voice shaking. "Get her out." Mirio, bleeding, nodded grimly, dragging himself up. Eri clung to him. Overhaul tried to rise. And Izuku moved, pinning him again with controlled force. Then the pros arrived, flooding the corridor, backup finally catching up. Overhaul was restrained. Eri was secured. Mirio was rushed to safety. Izuku stood there, shaking, scales slowly receding. Wing buds collapsing painfully back under skin. His throat was raw. His hands trembled. He'd saved her. But he'd felt how close he came. How sweet it would have been to end Overhaul. How easy it would have been to justify. He stared at his hands. And the dragon furnace hummed quietly, satisfied and hungry at the same time. 7. End of Chapter 10. The first true dragon breath. Later, outside the compound. Rain began again, soft, like the world knew it needed washing. Ambulances flashed. Police shouted. Heroes moved like shadows. Izuku sat on the curb, soaked, exhausted, throat bandaged. Eri sat nearby wrapped in a blanket, watched by pros. She looked at Izuku with wide eyes. Izuku looked away, ashamed of how he'd roared. Eri's small voice cut through the noise. "Thank you," she whispered. Izuku blinked. He looked at her. Eri's eyes were still sad. Still scared. But not hopeless. "I'm sorry," Izuku whispered. Eri tilted her head. "For what?" Izuku swallowed hard. "For almost becoming something scary," Izuku admitted, voice shaking. Eri stared at him a moment. Then she shook her head, small, stubborn. "You were scary," Eri whispered. Izuku flinched. Eri's eyes softened. "But you were scary at the bad guy," she said. "Not at me." Izuku's throat tightened. Eri hesitated, then held out her hand, small, trembling. Izuku stared at it like it was the most fragile thing in the world. Slowly, he reached out and let her hold his finger. Eri's grip was gentle, human, real, and in that tiny touch, Izuku felt the furnace settle. Not asleep, not gone, but anchored. Because dragon inside him finally understood something important. Being big wasn't the goal. Being feared wasn't the goal. Being safe for the people who needed him was the goal. Izuku exhaled slowly. A small puff of warm steam escaped his lips, barely visible in the rain. Not a roar, not fire, just breath. Eri smiled faintly at the little cloud. Izuku's eyes stung. He looked up at the rainy sky and whispered, so quietly only he could hear. I'll keep choosing. And deep inside his ribs, the dragon furnace hummed once, low and accepting. Because for the first time, Izuku didn't feel like he was fighting the dragon. He felt like he was teaching it what heroism meant. And deep inside his sea.
Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to check out my Patreon too. Until then, take care, we'll see you in the next video.